G'day, freedom lovers. How you going? Nothing like a message to come through just in the nick of time to remind me that I should put my phone on silent. You got to love these things, you know. All these years in some form of entertainment business and radio, television, internet, and I still forget to put my phone on silent. So, any of my guests in the background there, also as silly as I am, now's a timely reminder. So, I don't know who it was that sent that. I didn't actually get a chance to look, but anyway. G'day, Carol. How you going? You know what? We've had one hell of a day today. We got hacked and whatnot, but that's one of the things we're going to talk about. And obviously, we're going to talk about the election and how this is like one of the longest counts in council election here in Townsville. And you know, there seems to be a lot of people who are making comments on various pages like, "What? I thought it was over. Didn't Troy already win?" and things like that. But anyway, sounds like it, definitely. G'day, Michael. How you going, mate? Good to see you again. So, as usual, I should probably start off by reminding people of the Patreons and you know what wonderful people my Patreon friends are. And that's right, we moved that notepad earlier today. I'm going to come back to it because it's good old Jeannie, Lee, Jennifer, Gaza. Wow, I can't sing enough praise to Gaza, who has been very generous lately. You're a top bloke, Gaz. We might even have a bit of a chat about how what we think we should do with some of the wonderful cash that's been sent this way. Mark and Carla, Karina and Ruben, all amazing supporters of the North Queensland Freedom Network, and of course Fiona and Shane, who have reached out to make personal donations and such. You can be an awesome Patreon too, and 10 minutes before the show, I got a call from good old Blackboard, who we had on a couple of weeks ago, talking about, Indigenous affairs and truth tellings and things that they really don't want you to know about. And we have decided that we're going to do another special podcast with Blackboard, but we're going to talk about the things they really don't want you to know. But in order to do that, we're going to do it behind the paywall for Patreon. So if you guys are really interested in that, you need to jump onto the Patreon because there is special content, and Blackboard's going to be one of our first special content guests. So you'll definitely have to get onto that to find out about all the amazing information that the system doesn't want you to know about. So, g'day, Anna. People of the power back again. Good to see you, mate. Yeah, buddy, over the target, copying the flag. Yeah, that's it. That's probably why we got hacked. But we can only assume. We don't know. Is it because we are, doing such great work that these things are happening, or was it just bad luck? But anyway, time to bring in our guests to talk a little bit further about that. G'day, Oliver. How you going? And g'day, Troy.
How's it going?
G'day, guys. How are you?
Pretty good now, mate. Now that Facebook has finally given us our name back. It took all day to sort that out, but they finally got back to us in the end, which was good. So pretty happy about that. So where do you think we should start, guys? Should we start with actually, we could probably start with the hacking, because that kind of, you've had similar occurrences of being hacked during the campaign. Isn't that right, Troy?
Yeah, it never seems to end. There's always somebody trying to get into the system or overwrite the system, or we're continually getting identity checks. In the initial stages, we couldn't be verified, so we've had to go through the process, as frustrating as it is. And because we drove our campaign around socials initially, because we couldn't get media. So it was always tough, but they certainly wanted to have a crack at us as we started to make some momentum. As it got to the end, I think a lot of friends and other people also suffered, because by association, you would almost think.
Which, led us to the coincidence of, here we are ready to do this show. And first thing this morning, we get the notifications that all of a sudden our page name has changed. As we traced it through, because I've got some other admins involved on this one, and it's been identified that it was actually the attack come through at midnight while we were all sleeping, sort of thing. But it took 7 hours for that process to come through, and although we were notified, everybody was asleep. So how were we supposed to know that somebody was trying to do that? So Oliver, How did you first hear about what happened to us today?
Well, I got up in the morning with a completely different plan than what happened. What actually what my day ended up being. I was planning on working on some stuff at the food garden that I'm establishing currently, and then I get a call from you saying that we had been hacked, and I was like, "What? We've been hacked? What's this all about?" So I go to Facebook, check the page, and then I see that all the other pages of mine had been hacked also, which was quite frustrating. And then it was interesting having a chat with you, speculating about the potential cause of that. And although we can't say it was anyone because we actually don't know, it is a little bit interesting, isn't it, that it happened the way it did.
Yeah. The timing, it just makes you wonder. It really does, and they're clearly very desperate. The Labor Party's gone into panic mode. I've seen our mailbox has got another drop lately. They're trying to buy our votes with love. All the past 4 years of and beyond of bad Labor government. And now all of a sudden, we're going to give you a tax break, but you taxed us into submission to start with. You think do they really think this small amount of money is going to help us? But on top of that, with what's happened with this council election, I can imagine it's got them all rather some feathers are ruffling. But we don't know where that come from. The strange emails that you received, they were all in what we assume. Well, we've lost Oliver now. Oh, and here, hang on, he's coming back. Add the stage, and Oliver's back. Okay,
Yep.
cool. Dropped out there for a second there, mate.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I was saying, your emails were all coming from what we assumed was Filipino. Did we actually determine that that's what the language was?
Yeah, Tagalog. I'm pretty sure it's called. So that was interesting. But yeah, I'm interested to know a little bit about from Troy as to why what kinds of hindrances you've had, and you were talking about that you've encountered lots of different hacks. Do you have you gotten to the bottom of any of those, Troy? Is there why they've been happening?
Look, it's interesting because never had them before I ran. So one, it's got to be around the campaign modeling. But even things like when you first set up the campaign account, or when Michelle and I first set up the campaign account, we verified everything. We got our ID. We did everything right. We struggled because when you register for a political campaign, there's also the subheadings. You've got to, whenever you boost or whenever you advertise or whenever you do anything, you got to say it's political. So we had to make sure we went through a lot of hoops to get to that point, but we kept getting shut out, even though we'd been fully approved. And that would come back and say verify. And it's like, is this a meta thing or is this a hack thing? Because we were verified. So it was very, I can't put a answer to why it happened, but what I can say was as popularity grew, it happened more often. So, it's very interesting that, and in the last week since the election has pretty much closed, there's been a lot of extra attention on me and everybody around me. So, our followers grew, I think, 900 in 4 days. And that sort of says, a lot more people are looking at us. Maybe we're now on the radar, which we are, because we weren't taken seriously when we went through the process, because the current government was very overconfident.
Do you think their overconfidence has played a part in how this has turned out? Because, I looked around town and I didn't really see a lot of call flutes for any of the Team Jenny Hill mob until like the last week or so. It was only as we were leading up to the election that it seemed like they even tried.
Yeah, look, and they were that confident that they were going to win. And what's interesting now is the major players for them, the ones who are the most consistent, and the ones who have been there the longest, Jenny Hill, Russ Cook, Mark Mollicino, Liam Mooney, they're all under threat. and Margie
Well,
Wright.
Liam Mooney's gone. Like, if we bring up this, for instance, he's conceded to Christian Price. Congratulations, Christian, who's knocked out the deputy mayor.
Yeah, so he and Christian's actually extended his lead to 1,000 votes now, so it can't be clawed back, which is fantastic. So no one saw that one coming, but the deputy mayor's gone.
Yeah.
So we went to my place yesterday, and Christian was almost in disbelief, but so excited because he was there at 4:00 every morning, and he closed up at 6 p.m. every night. He was first there, last out, and he just worked it. And he was picked on. He lost his job because he ran in the local campaign, and that was one of the other things. Because he chose to have a go against the current councillor, not just the councillor, the deputy mayor, he lost his job. So he was fighting for his life.
Oh, it's a big one. Like, it's a shame he's unable to make it. Fortunately for him, he was able to secure some tickets for Pink, and he's out there rocking on with a large portion of Townsville. But he will come and give us some comments about that at some point, because I'd definitely like to explore a little bit more about losing his job because he ran for council, and it starts to make me wonder how long before other people, maybe myself included, find our employment being, revoked because somebody's starting to interfere with that. How long before a member of the Labor or the unions turn up at a place that I work and go, you need to get rid of him if you want to keep operating, or we're going to make your life hard. Because it's not the first time we've seen those kind of standover tactics over the last, for as long as I can remember, actually. I remember hearing from people, particularly on building sites, having their sites shut down by union thugs because they wouldn't join up with their little union cause.
Yeah, it's sad to think that that's the way we've now been gauged, isn't it? We have to be union members or a member of a party to be accepted, where the freedoms that we always had and the independence that we always had is almost been pushed aside. And I think that's what really got me to push as an independent, because I didn't want parties, didn't want teams, and don't want memberships. I think it's important on a local level, at least, that we have those freedoms to talk to every demographic, and we haven't had that for a long time.
Definitely. I just want to say g'day to Susan, who's watching us from sunny and windy today, Scotland. Who, I'm not sure what time it is, but Susan's amazing. She gets up sometimes at 4:00 in the morning to watch the show, which is really, really inspiring. It's great that we're reaching all the way from far north Queensland to Scotland. So that's just great. So g'day, Susan. It's always a pleasure to see you. And Jan, of course, is another loyal person who turns up as often as possible. So 9:20 a.m. So not up at Sparrow's Fart today, so it's a reasonable hour. So good morning to you, Susan. So anyway, sorry, let's get back to topic. It's good to engage with this, and we do have one question here for Troy. How do you feel about your fan page, mate? I did see that you had addressed it. Let's have a bit of a chat about your new fan page.
Well, it's isn't it funny? It started off well. I thought, oh, there I am. I've got some fans, and all of a sudden it went downhill from there. So I think typically, like anything, you get a bit of success, and somebody mirrors it and copies it and tries to, I guess, bring down, and this is part of what I'm seeing, be it Bulletin, be it other areas, they certainly don't like you to be successful against the major party. And look, this is one of them. That was an old One Nation photo. And the first thing, one, it's not the way I speak at all. And
definitely.
I have the utmost respect for people all the time and everybody and every level in the community. And that comes out and it's like, really? That's the level we're going to go to now. But, at the end of the day, this is what we expect going into public life, sadly.
You got to wonder, like, how pathetic these people are, you know. Like, I mean, like I've addressed a few trolls over the years, and you know, I kind of look at it as it's kind of an homage in a sense, because it's like I've clearly created such an amazing bridge that trolls want to come and live under it. So clearly, you've built an amazing bridge, and a bunch of trolls want to come and live under your bridge too.
Yeah, well, they won't stay there long because we're putting on new maintenance crews, mate. So such is life, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Actually, driving down the highway lately, I've seen a lot of roadworks going. They all seem to be with bridge crews. They must be looking for trolls down the Bruce Highway as well, along all those bridges there.
Oh, mate, I just, isn't it funny? An election comes and peak comes, and all of a sudden, all the work starts.
You can't bloody move around Townsville at the moment.
No.
Like the amount of roadworks they've got, like to me, it was like, what a dumb idea. You're gonna block all traffic up across the whole town in one hit right before the election.
Yep.
I mean, you've just really drawn attention to the fact you've done nothing for 4 years in one instance. And the other instance is now on my way to go and vote, I had to go through like 3 bloody lots of roadworks. You've just annoyed the hell out of me. Why would I vote for you? I don't get it. Like, they're clearly out of touch.
It was interesting. I've obviously had to drive back and forth to the different polling booths in the last couple of weeks. And on every door of traffic controllers, which is a really sad fact, one is a Cairns company, one is a Brisbane company, one is a company from Mackay, and the other one's a company from Townsville. And they're different companies at different roadworks. So we actually don't employ our own people. And why doesn't council have its own traffic control and spend it instead of spending $1,500 a person?
It's got me, and you know, like I think it's something that unfortunately Alan's not here to sort of shed a little bit of light on, because fixing roads and whatnot was something he was done. But I believe he was saying that, you know, he was struggling to get employment, you know, from council in particular to maintain the roads when he has the skills and the necessary equipment to do it.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it?
It is, and you know, hopefully you get in and we can have a look a little bit more about other, what was the word for it? Tenders, is that the right word?
Yeah, look, the interesting part about council is there's a lot of open-ended tenders and things that happen. There's a lot, to me, and in business, there's never friends in business. You know, you've got to go about your business. That's how you get profit. In the private world, and I've said it 1,000 times, but it resonates with people. If you don't finish a job, you don't get paid, right? In the public world, if you don't finish a job, you put the fences up and you wait for the next round of funding to come. And that's what happens. You know, it's sad to think that we quote a job, we don't finish it because we've spent the money, and then we have to wait for more money to come. That's a reflection on your capability to manage a budget. As a public entity. Well, we haven't managed the budget. So,
and it seems to happen a lot with sort of Labor kind of people too, where they always seem to go over budget somehow. So what happened there? You know, it's like, are these companies holding them to ransom in some way? Like, it's like, oh yeah, cool, we'll do the job for this, and then they get halfway through, half build it, go, oh sorry, we've run out of money. If you want us to finish the road, you're going to have to cough up more. You know, I don't get it.
I think it's got a lot to do with the consulting. You know, the consultants are getting an absolute mozza as far as money goes. And that's drawing from the money that's required to complete a job. Every time they put a consultant, I mean, you just got to look at the Hell's Gate Dam and the amount of the millions that have been spent on consulting companies, and we've never done anything with it.
Yeah.
You know, it just keeps changing hands. It's just like we're feeding our mates in Labor world, and then all of a sudden, you know, there's no more money. So it's just frightening the amount of money that's walking out the door. Yeah,
definitely. And obscene amounts. And especially when, you know, I think it was in my latest podcast, there was a bit of a look into the Greens candidate who had spent copious amounts of money on here it is. I'll just bring this one up. You know, 1 million on the top of his list, on top of his $314 salary, and you know, he'd $23,000 on 2 private jet flights. Here's a guy who's telling me I can't drive my car, but it's okay for him to catch private jets. Talk about absolute contradiction of standards. Like, I've said it for a long time now. These Greens and the Labors, you know, particularly the far left kind of people, are just a walking contradiction. They do one thing, they say another. Madness.
Yep. Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? The amount of wastage that go. If we could just complete things, and you know, I look at Townsville City Council like any other state, federal government. We're not completing things, but we're also we've lost workers. There's lots of bums in seats, but there's no boots on ground. I mean, how do we complete anything if we don't have workers?
Yeah.
You know, that's a culture that we built to. Everybody who seems to apply for a job wants to be a manager, but no one wants to work to get there.
It is nuts. It really is. So, g'day, Alexander. How you going? Socialism and communism, says Anna. I am inclined to agree. You know, they're definitely those two things. And for the history lesson, it was the Labor Party who allowed communism back into the country in 73, I think it was. Gough Whitlam repealed the act that was put in place in the 50s that banned communism in Australia. And when you look into the Fabian Socialist Society, you will find that a large portion of the Labor Party are members of the Fabian Socialist Society, and every Prime Minister on the Labor side is pretty much either in actually, I think most of them are since Gough Whitlam. Just about every one of them has been a Fabian Socialist, and you just have to go and have a look at their website to see how much the Labor Party is praised by them, to see that there is definitely a massive connection. So yeah, it's definitely not a conspiracy theory. So the election itself, it's been dragged out for quite some time now. Probably one of the longest counts we've seen, and everybody's sort of sitting on the edge of their seat to see how it's all going. I haven't had a chance to check today, but I should probably. Where is it? Not that one.
Officially, from a mayoral count, it's gone up today marginally. So all of the counts, all the ballots from all of the booths have been counted. So what hasn't been counted is the postal votes finish coming in at 6 p.m. on Tuesday. So once the postie been and delivered all of those ballots, that's it. That's the cutoff. They'll count those and add those to the bill. Now, there's only 1,300 of those that have registered. So there's only 1,300 votes to come from postals. And then after that, they will count all of the preferences that Harry Patel has. So effectively at the moment, Harry Patel has 10,000 votes. What I can say from the scrutineers that we've got, that's about 1,000 secondary and third votes. So in preferences. So if you add the 1,300 and the 1,000 of Harry's, that'll give us 2,300. And at the moment, my lead on primary is 27, and my lead on the preference is 3,100. So we're close, but obviously you just never know what happens. There's been lots of stop-starts.
So and I'll just bring that up for people. Sorry, it took me a little while to get the bits going here. Well, that's a new one. I didn't see this the other day when I was looking at it. Maybe because it's the first time I brought it up on a computer, so it gives us a good look and an indication of, you know. So Harry's certainly not in the race.
No,
but,
so he's got 9,700 votes, but only 10% of them was the optional preference votes, because every candidate put number 1 beside their name.
Yep.
So many people didn't preference. So only
10% of his, you reckon? So 9,000, we're looking at about 900, maybe 1,000 that have preferenced someone. And do we know where those preferences have gone so far?
Look, when I spoke to Harry, because he, as he said to me, he only put 1 on his vote and he kept pushing the independents. When I spoke to my scrutineers, most of those votes were heading my way.
Right.
But look, if I looked at a worst case scenario and he had 1,000 votes and they went to Jenny, then effectively she's still 1,700 votes behind me.
Yep.
If she got all of those votes and I got none, and then there's also 1,300 postal votes. So if she got all of those and I got none, that still gives me a lead of 400 votes.
Rightio.
So that's where we're at.
Okay. So when we look at total formal votes and it says 96% complete, is so the remaining 3.69%, is that the postal votes that we're waiting on?
No, so those ones are actually, so this is the votes that they have counted. This is the percentages, and of the
hang
votes,
on. I just realised 3.69 right there are the informal votes, right?
Yeah. So basically, they're the ones where somebody's put a tick and a cross, or they put one and a cross, or something
or a
like
smiley
that.
face,
or written commie something or other on them, or something like that. As you would know.
Yes, definitely. Refer to my previous cartoon that we did 4 years ago. Die Commie Scum, I think it was, that I put on there. Please don't write Die Commie Scum on your ballot. It will not help you get rid of the cronies.
But if you scroll upwards a bit, Mark, there's a secondary up a little bit more. So if you change the to where am I? Unofficial preliminary count. Okay. So that was obviously the first count of all the votes, and we're quite a way in front there. But then we went to preference votes, which is that everybody's got one beside their name. The official distribution of preferences is Harry's preferences.
Okay, and no votes were recorded for this section.
Yeah, so that hasn't happened yet because all the postals and Harry's haven't been counted. So on Tuesday at 6 p.m. when they close off the postals, most of those postals will have already been counted. Now, even though they say 1,300 people registered, it doesn't mean that 1,300 people are going to send their votes in.
So 1,400, and that's how many people are enrolled to vote.
Yes,
and so far we've had 110.
Yeah, and they're not going to get much more than that, other than about 2,500 more.
Right.
That's it. So, which is the registered postal votes, and that's pretty much it from the registered postal votes, and then we start talking about preferences. If you go back to 2020, they only actually had 102,000 back then, but the population or the enrollment was 128,000. So. In reference to when people see, only 78%'s been counted, that's the most that has been voted in the last 8 years or 2 terms.
Okay.
So a lot of people just don't vote because they're like, it's local elections, I don't care.
Yeah. So if we go here and I go...
if you go to the election... Yeah, okay. I was going to say,
elections here.
Go down to election results and statistics.
Yep.
If you scroll right down, it'll go to 2020 election results. You just went past it.
2020 general election. Is that it?
Not state. Go down one more.
This one?
Sorry, no. Sorry, down, not up. Yeah, a bit more. Keep going. There.
Local government, that one? Yep.
Yeah. So if you hit that, of course it's going to do that.
We're having trouble finding that. The amount of technology that's been failing lately. Like I was just talking to Blackboard, and he's been having all sorts of trouble with his phone, and I mean I've been having trouble with my phone lately, and obviously we're getting things that are hacked, and they're supposed to be encouraging us to go for digital ID and all this sort of stuff and digital currency, and we can't even get a web page to load. This is from official government stuff, and they can't load a page from 4 years ago.
See, Oliver, it's not just you, mate. It's also the local and state governments.
They've been hacked. They've been hacked.
Good. That's good. I was wondering if all my mushroom workshops were starting to get the authorities' attention, maybe cause a bit of ruckus here.
Clearly,
that's the Townsville Mushroom Society workshops I'm talking about there. I do, do that sort of thing. Hey, I've been I've got a whole bunch of questions like loaded up that I've been really kind of burning to ask.
Yes.
One of them, because I presume, and I suppose we don't want to assume too much, but I imagine a lot of the viewers here have been following. Would you agree, Mark? This whole situation. Yeah.
Well, I've been keeping them up to date, and this isn't
Yeah.
Troy's first appearance. So, in some way, shape, or form, people have been watching. We do, like, we obviously have a broad audience, so not everyone is as vested as the Townsvillians, but we've got people from Scotland here, we've got people
Yeah.
from all
Okay.
around the country. So,
Yeah.
the North Queensland the Freedom Network has possibly got a broader reach than Townsville Bulletin at the moment.
Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, because I was actually just reflecting. I think I remember the first time I met you, Troy, and perhaps you don't remember this because this was so long ago, but I believe it was back in 2020. You were at the Willows Markets, I believe, if my memory is correct, and I was looking for all the candidates or all the other people involved in any sort of political action here in Townsville, and I was actually going to them, like all the, on the left, on the right, in between, everyone, to inquire with them about their perspective on direct democracy, because that was something that I thought would be helpful to engage more people in the political discussion and therefore political action here in Townsville. Because you touched on it just a bit earlier, like how sometimes people don't take voting that seriously, and I know for myself, and I know lots of other people, there's a lot of political dissatisfaction in Australia. I remember reading a study that it was, and there's people always throw out the percentages, so we don't know if it is that, but from memory, it was about 70% of Australians are very dissatisfied with politics in Australia, and often feel that they're not able to make a real impact here. And that's something that I kind of feel. And so what I do to remedy that is I've looked at ways that I can just try to make impacts myself without going through that system. And so one of my questions is, it sounds, from what it sounds like you're really interested in perhaps dispelling that a little bit and involving people more in improving Townsville, and by extension getting people more involved in or rather helping them understand things on a more political level, and yeah, getting them involved in stuff. So I was curious to know what your plans are for things of that nature, to get people involved and get the morale up a little bit.
Yeah, look, I think the big problem in politics is there's not enough education going out there for all demographics. So it really is targeted to, and look, I'm 53, so right. Because of my mum and dad and everything else, they've lived and breathed, and that's all they ever talk about. God bless them. But right. I look at the younger generation, my kids. So my son's 26, my daughter's 29. But then I also look at that 18 to 24 demographic, and it was really interesting. When I ran socials, I had less than 1% of that demographic even looking at me. And I said to Michelle, my campaign manager, how do we remedy that? And she goes, get on TikTok, look at other avenues, start talking to some of these locals, and do something a little bit out of the box that's out of your comfort zone, because it might be out of your comfort zone, but this is how they communicate. So oddly enough, I had a young lady, I think about 19 from uni, who put up a post and said, oh, this guy is actually asking the question why we don't want to vote, why we're not interested. Right. So he's trying to engage us. And then all of a sudden, all these people started listening to her. So I guess what I try and do is understand, how do I connect to a demographic or an age group? And it could be male, female, any position that there is around the place. And look, I have the same thing with transgender and drag queens and all of that. But I myself don't understand it, because I went through a generation that was very black and white. So it's hard to connect to the age group. But I think what the problem is in politics, they're not willing to connect. They don't want to communicate. But what's going to happen is that demographic and that age group is going to come through the system, and we're probably going to lose 40% of the vote, because they're not, they're not taken seriously for the vote and their knowledge and their input. And I think that's something the one thing that really impressed me about young Ben Tilley, who's a Greens member, and whether you're green or you're red or you're white or yellow, whatever party you represent, Ben was sitting in the ballot room at on the ballot day when they drew the ballot papers out, and he was sitting there, and he was a young kid. He's 19, and he was sitting there in the shorts and shirts. And I presumed, silly of me to presume, but I'm happy to admit it. I said, "Oh, who are you here with? Are you?" And he goes, "No, I'm actually running." And I went, "Oh, well, how old are you?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm 19." I said, "Mate, that is so brave and good on you for having a go, because I would never have been that brave at that age to put my hand up with all the scrutiny that comes." But then I said, "So what do you?" He goes, "Oh, you won't like me because I'm Greens." I said, "What makes you think I don't like you?" And he goes, "Oh, well, everybody hates the Greens." I said, "Well, actually, no. On a council where there's 10 chairs, you should be able to represent all demographics, be it age, party. But if you don't hear and you don't listen, how do you represent your community properly?" So does that answer that sort of question with why? I guess I look at things a lot differently. I want to engage as many of the community as I can to get a decision.
Yeah, that's something. Yeah, that does kind of answer the question. I suppose that it's a big question. But yeah, that's something that I think is really important and needed here. Is more perspective, more diversity, or I think more input. That's the word I'm looking for. I think we need to have more input on important things in our town and in Australian politics in general. And yeah, I'm just it's very refreshing to hear that coming from someone like yourself, who is potentially going to be the mayor of Townsville. So that's very cool, I think. So yeah,
to me, Oliver, if you don't reach everybody in the community, put your best foot forward and attempt to, because if you don't, you close yourself out. I look at the party that's in power at the moment, and they've got a very skinny demographic. Right now, they've got 40% of the community. I want close to 90 to 100%. I'd love to get 100%, but you're never going to get that. But at least try and communicate. That's why we try different things, markets, or if somebody says, "Look, come to this fair, come on the North Queensland Freedom Network, talk about it," because it's a different demographic than I always reach. But you want to speak to everybody, and everybody deserves a chance, because we're all human beings. No one's better than anybody else.
Yep. Yeah, cool. Yeah. Cool. Well, some other things I was actually interested to ask was how you might like some of your thoughts about the first things that you might do if you become mayor of Townsville.
Look, what I see, and because I put 10 pledges together, but it's going to take a little bit of time, but I hope to achieve every one of those and more within the 4 years. So I can say to people, not 2 weeks out from an election or 6, that, hey, these are all the things that I did and I completed them. But first things first, I think what has to happen around the table, because you've got half that are Team Jenny Hill and you've got all these other ones, you have to learn to get along. And in the chamber, you've got 10 councillors and a mayor and a CEO, and we all come from different walks of life. And if we can't, as adults, get along and put our communities that we represent first, it's not going to work at the end of the day. So I will make it very clear to everybody in that chamber that we need to communicate, and we need to be forward-facing to our community. So every single month, I commit to my community, which is all of Townsville, and with the elected councillor, that we go and meet that division every month and say, hey, what are we doing wrong? Because no one's ever held themselves accountable. So you've got to get that connection. So that to me is the most important part. We should be hearing what the dissatisfaction is and be brave enough to stand in front of people who just they're so angry, but a lot of people just want to say, hey, I want to be heard. And if we can do that, then we can go back to the council chamber and start making some progression moving forward. So I think first things first is establish a council that's willing to work and forward face, not backstab and dig up the crap and all the other stuff, but forward face and move together positively. And it'll be very clear when people don't turn up to that first meeting who are councillors, and you will know their commitment to your community. And I think that's important to the voters. And then from there, we then have a starting point to say, okay, in Division 10, Walgaroo sewage, there's water, there's fluoride in water, or there's there's issues that we need to address, and that's what our community has said. So, there's crime, there's lots of other things, but my first priority is get council right, but the back of house too, because for too long there's been chair sitters and not enough workers. So we've got a clean house. It's not about a Campbell Newman style wipeout. I actually want more people working in council, but do it together and build a community around supporting it. Imagine, somebody said to me about the cost of living. Imagine, Mark, if I said to you, hey, mate, if you mow your lawn and present well out the front, and you can make sure your street's doing that, and you do so many hours over the next 6 months, I'm going to give you a discount on your rates. You be going, happy days, I'm going to start. And that's how you build a community. You get engagement by your community. That's what's got me the vote, is that I've engaged the community. So I think, we've got to start building those community connectors and set up outside of council committees that work together and put forward real suggestions. Don't let the councillors make them all up. It should be up to the community, because you pay us. I know that you probably want a list of this, but realistically, fix the council and the councillors, because it's very sour at the moment. And get out there and connect to community, and then start working with community to establish connections. So we're proud of what we do and we work together.
That sounds excellent. I was actually about to ask you, I've got lots of questions, man. We need to.
No, that's all right.
But
as long as Mark's got the time.
I was about to.
Yeah,
ask,
I've got the time.
If you know of any other historical examples of when a committee, such as a council, has actually gotten along and then actually progressed and made some decent headway. And then you just suggested something about people actually participating and really trying to improve their neighborhoods and that sort of thing as a way to get people to ease some cost of living standards perhaps. And then you also mentioned the small committees that might be able to also assist the council, which is actually something I was going to suggest, and it has actually been done before in other countries that I'm aware of. So I would love to see that personally, and I think I don't see any other way that we could be more effective in trying to work together in progressing things here. So that's cool.
Well, you've got to get community buy-in to be accepted and to move forward, and it's the community who sees the problems within its own divisions. It's not the councillors, because the councillors we've had have walked around with blinkers on, or they've not attended, or there's not enough going on. You can sit on a phone all day and listen to people ring up about things, but unless you stand face to face with people and communicate it, you know for yourself when somebody's saying, yes, tick, 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 but they're not going to do anything about it. But if they're truly committed, they'll come and confront their community and say, what do we need to do? How do we fix this? And the other part is the transparency, because you guys are going to be saying to me in 12 months' time, look, we suggested this. It hasn't been done. Why is it? You should be able to say, hey, Troy, I saw that you took it to the table at the council chambers, and it's going to cost this much, which is great. You've told us all the way along what it's going to cost, what you need, but how are we going to get it completed? What I want is a full, transparent council. So if you want to come and sit in the chamber up the top and watch a live chamber, that it is fully open and there's nothing behind closed doors. That builds trust, and with trust, we build community.
Now, on that topic, I'd just like to bring something to the table, because here's good old Susie here. Now, this is, obviously 25 weeks ago, but the issue of the park down the road that we're talking about here was actually, probably somewhere in the vicinity of 3 or 4 years ago, little hoodlums burnt the park down. Yep. Now, at the time, the fences go up, and a notice with a little, QR code to scan or in a website and all that. Jump on and tell us what you would like us to do with this. The community engaged. The community said we'd like barbecues. We'd like some toilets. Can you actually provide the facilities that the people are asking? She just built the same bloody park, exactly the same as it was. It took several months, but we finally got there. But it was a carbon copy of what was there before, completely ignored what everybody said. It was burnt down a couple of weeks later. As a result, we've still had no park because nothing's been done for ages. So here we go. Is there going to be CCTV coverage of the equipment to try, and I mean try, to deter a further arson attempt? She goes, yes, there will be lights in the camera. Thank you, fingers crossed. Have a break from this page and spend some time with the beautiful family. Righto. And, hi, guys, just to let you know, there is no barbecue at this stage because people are asking for the barbecue. I will be submitting for a barbecue for this park in the next budget, as there was no budget left for the project. But we had project, some for the cameras. Like, obviously, they prioritize the cameras. Personally, I would like the barbecue over the cameras. I don't think the cameras do anything, But happy to submit to the council to see if that would be, in part of the consideration. And now she's finally come back. The site fencing is scheduled to be removed because they have built a car park, an actual playground. But then 2 weeks later, they're bringing it back down to put the barbecue in. So they finally come through with the barbecue as well. Or was it the permanent CCTV installation infrastructure will be going on the 28th of March. The temporary CCTV will remain in place until the permanent system is commissioned. So, yeah. So finally, we're getting there. But it seems that it, and this is just this week. It's a huge process. It's 25 weeks ago. And now we're at this stage, not to mention the years it took, and the people asked for that. It's like, glad we finally got there. But
yeah, look, and this is where we've got it wrong as a council, and we put money in the wrong areas, because at the end of the day, the ratepayers want sewage, water, rubbish services, and maintenance of all their parks, so we can walk safely. Yes, there is a provision for cameras from time to time, but they don't need to be everywhere. We know the spots are frequented. Now, the other one is the Rocks Around Park. I put up a post you would have seen a little bit of time ago, and Greenwood Park, the rocks around that, is $349,000. $340,000. Now, a barbecue at your said park might cost $10,000.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of barbecues and a lot of parks, right? They're not ripping up the parks that often if we controlled it. So to answer another question of one of Oliver's questions about how do we maintain and what's one of the priorities? Well, I've put to the state members and a federal senator today my consequences for crime program. And what that is not punish, not beat, not throw in jail, but get these kids who are of age, so not the 6 to 12-year-olds, they will have to go through, other programs and other cultural programs and pull them out of what they're in. So they will go west with something like what the CAT has provided to learn pride and culture and those sort of things. The problem with that one is, and I'll start with it, is your elders that you've got in Townsville are Walgarookaba, Bindal and Jura. Now, if you're from Mount Isa or you're from Perth or you're from somewhere else, there's no elders. So they respect their elders from their own mob and tribe. So you pull somebody out of the detention centre in Cleveland and he's from Mount Isa and you don't have an elder to talk to, and you send a Walgarookaba when, I'm sorry, it's like an American trying to speak to a British bloke. It's just not going to work. There's not going to be that immediate respect. So I've spoken to multiple elders, and we want to put a platform in place where they don't want to be paid. This is the interesting thing. Everybody thinks they just want to get paid. Where they put a whole team of elders together, so when one of these kids come in, they've got a support of an elder who's local to them, not foreign to them. And then Townsville City Council, because we're so low on maintenance workers, creates jobs for these kids. And if they rip up a park, they fix the park. If they paint on a wall, they fix the wall. And they all have spur accounts. So when they can't pay their fines, the government allows a state penalties account. And it's some of these kids who are 14 have got $20,000 bills. So make them work until they pay that down. You don't take their whole wage because you're building pride and skills, and you're also paying them so they learn. Oh, at work, I get paid. I've got a job. I've got a skill. So when you break that cycle, they can leave and go, hey, you know what? I'm going to run my own lawn mowing business outside. So that's what we've got to do. So from a local perspective, I'm going to create jobs. And people say, oh, you're not going to get the local support. Well, I'll tell you what, if I don't get state support, what I will do to Aaron Harper, Scott Stewart, Nick DeMetto, and Les Walker is say, hey, guys, if you don't put up the money and you don't support my program, which clearly will work, then you really don't want to be re-elected. And I'll make sure everybody in Townsville knows that. Because why would you not support putting these kids into work? That's how you break the cycle. You participate. Because it's happening locally, the crime. It's not about the state and it's not about the federal. It's happening local. State government does penalty, punishment, police. Local has to participate. So that's one of the programs, Oliver, that I intend to bring in, because I think what it does is it builds pride. These kids learn what a job is. They get paid for the job. They've got money in their pocket. Now, not all of them are going to do it. Yes, they'll have to wear an ankle bracelet, because if they run off or don't want to do it, then you have to add some time to them so that when you do put them into a program that works, they have to work that time out. But it's not about throwing them into a kiddie centre where we pay $2,500 a day. It's about getting them out and work and getting them mixing with people and adults and learning the skill set. That might be, let's become a draftsman. Let's work in the IT division. But let's give them an opportunity and support them with the elders who recognise them.
Well, I look forward to hearing what Aaron's got to say on that. At this point, I think I might bring in this wonderful article where our old mate's been firing off at the hip. State MP has delivered an emotional address to Parliament accusing Townsville's likely new mayor of harassing and intimidating his family and urging him to come clean on a number of issues. And, he goes on to bring up, some alleged facts and whatnot about, how him and his wife feel physically ill to be around Mr. Thompson. It seems like you're going to have a bit of a hard time sort of cracking this tough nut, because he's already coming out and saying he feels physically, they feel physically ill to be around you. Like I can feel that way about him. I think the first time I met Aaron Harper, I honestly thought there's something not right about this guy. I feel ill to be in his presence. So I don't know if he's just kind of projecting how other people feel about him onto others. I'm not sure. Look, but honestly, he also went on to say that he didn't feel he could work with you. Like, he's already coming out and saying that. It was somewhere in here.
Yep. Yeah. He it's probably further down, but or is that it?
No, that's it. It's a pretty.
Yeah. So look, I've addressed all these online, and I'm happy to address them because it's about answering questions. So back in 2020, when I ran, and I went down to learn more and engage more and find out what the role
here
is.
It is. Sorry, I don't know how we're going to have a working relationship. I do get on with other councillors, but my goodness me, leave my family out of it.
Yeah. So basically in 2020, I took the photo as a joke because, I like to have a joke and a bit of fun, and that's what Aussies do. And I took a photo in front of his door with
Remember you showing me the photo?
Yeah. Well, and what happened was I got banned for Parliament because he felt intimidated. He thought I might have entered his office or threatened him, or he was worried and bullied.
I'd like to say for the record too, having seen that photo, that all you did was grab a piece of paper with your name on it and hold it in front of the door over the top of his name, which to me suggested, I'm coming for your seat, mate.
Yeah,
a bit of a joke.
And that
became harassment and intimidation. That's just nuts.
Yeah, that was used as the harassment and intimidation. Where he says about his family, I had a member of the public come to me and say, hey, Troy, did you know that Amanda Harper, now I'll be very clear, I went to school with Aaron's wife. We were in the same grade for 4 years. So it's not like we don't know each other. But what was actually interesting was somebody from the general public said to me, hey, look, Mrs. Harper has actually been offered a job, allegedly, and this job, while she's qualified, there's more qualified people, and we believe she's been offered the job because Aaron is in the position he's in. And that's all it was. There's no attack on family. It was a general statement about what somebody from the public had sent me, and I even clipped it and said, look at this message I've got. And so as far as he's concerned, I'm intimidating him, I'm bullying him, and I'm now pulling his family and picking. I'm like, hang on a minute, you've got to be able to tell people what I've been told. I'm not one to hold back everything. I'm one to say, this is what happened. Aaron's playing politics here because he's fighting for his life in October. That's what it comes down to. And if he chooses not to work with me, well, that's on him. I'll work with any person and any party because the politics is now over. It's about getting down and doing your job. That's what you do when you negotiate with parties. What I will say about Aaron Harper is he also went on and said, Troy Thompson has never apologized to me. So on my Facebook page, I sent a letter because all of these things about the photo at Aaron's office went through the ethics committee and had me banned from Parliament for taking a photo. So I had to write a letter to the ethics committee and I apologized to him, the member I was with, which was Stephen Andrew from One Nation, and I apologized not once but twice to Aaron Harper. Clearly he didn't get the letter, even though he raised the issue of me being a bully and intimidating him.
Yeah. Definitely odd. Yeah.
So
doesn't make a lot of sense.
It doesn't. And I think if anything, he's probably done himself more harm because I produced a letter to say, hey, mate, not only did I apologize, I did it twice. So I never bullied him, and I don't do that to people.
Yeah. I've never known you to be like that. So it's, but, on the other hand, I did stand there at the crime rally where I hear him call everybody, a renter crowd, and that we were probably all there as LNP or Labor supporters anyway, dismissing, the pissed off residents who were victims of crime, like the disdain he had for the people because they were genuinely pissed off at him and with good bloody reason,
Well, look, as a local, state or federal members, all of them should always be present because they have to take ownership because they have a responsibility to provide safety to the community. That's what it comes down to. Doesn't matter what level of government, you have a responsibility. And I believe this state government has walked away from that at the moment. They need to change the rules because there's no consequences. There's no actions. There's no, they're putting these things in place, but nothing's working. The crime's still there. It's actually getting worse. It has.
Actually, I looked up the crime statistics at that point because, again, he was trying to handball and say, crime was bad during, the period the Liberals were in power. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's address that. Let's have a look. Yeah, the crime was bad, but it's gotten a hell of a lot worse since Labor's been in.
Yeah.
So, if I punch in crime stats Townsville, if you want to bang off a correct question while I try and find some stats, mate.
Something that I was going to bring up, and completely respect your decision to not comment on this because it is a bit of a sticky one. But I've been wondering about some of the things that you might have in mind for, like you've got these plans for how to deal with the youth crime, like the actual people who are committing crimes in this city or who are perhaps repeat offenders. But my question would be, how might you deal with people who would have a vested interest in keeping the crime rate high, if there are any?
Look, I think we recognise that the crime is there because there's an income. There's an income stream that comes out of crime. And to me, it's about finding out where that income stream is coming from. And if that's from political or it's from a business or wherever that stems from, and it is all over the place, then there's got to be punishments even harsher for those individuals. So we have to address that. But first,
What
we've
kind
got
of
to
examples? Sorry, could you? Well, I just want to, dive into that concept a little bit more. Where there's money in the crime, what kind of examples would you hypothesize there? Like, what kind of organizations are making the money? Are we talking about like drug dealers? Are we talking about perhaps government bodies that are getting money from the government to sit there and try and solve a problem and then not solve it?
Sorry, were you asking me or were you asking?
Yeah, I'm asking you, like, what do you
Yeah.
think? What are those people that are making money?
Look, there's so many different strands. When I went to that house to recover my brother's property back in 2020, that we stumbled on, and what was interesting, we stumbled on not just my nephew's property that we got back, but what we stumbled across was there was meth in there. And it was an ongoing police investigation that this day has not been fixed. That house still provides meth, still has stolen property, and no one got charged.
So no one got charged, even though the coppers turned up and the stuff was strewn all over the lawn. They brought out, is this your stuff? Is this your stuff? Like, there was so much stuff that was stolen there. They didn't even know whose stuff they'd stolen it from. They're just bringing everything away to get you and the cameras away.
Yeah, and that's what it was about. It was more, I got questioned afterwards about, you've interfered with an ongoing investigation. Really? Should we not be investigating why there's meth, why there's stolen property, who owns the house, and who's behind the problem? But ongoing investigation means this. I'm talking 2020. It's now 2024. Still not fixed. So there is big business behind this. Big business feeds drugs. Drugs feed criminals. Criminals are the ones that get punished, but are they the right criminals to be punished? So my thought process is, let's start working and identifying and have community. We've got all these great crime channels within social media and different areas who know who these criminals are and where they come from. So why not establish something like the old Crime Stoppers, where we know and we bring that to the forefront? We start, we're not putting ourselves in danger, but we bring it up. We say, well, what's being done? And then we can put pressure and say, where are we at? If I don't know, I can't push it. But if I know, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to take it up to the state member and say, why wasn't this done? Or the local police commissioner, where are we at with this?
How are you able to do that? And you just said something about you're able to do that like safely or not put yourself in danger by.
Well, look, by running for mayor, I put myself in danger because I've just taken out somebody who's been in government for 20 years. And with that comes lots of threats, lots of issues, lots of business being destabilized because they now don't have the income stream that they've got. But, at the end of the day, somebody has to step forward and say, enough is enough. Let's get the community involved. And it might be a channel. It might be something that's a private number that people can report to, and we bring it forward to the police. But we've got to establish something to be able to bring that to police or above or government. But I suspect there's lots of parties involved in this. So it's really important to first put a structure in place, but also understand what the crime is and where the criminals and where they come into it. Because some are funding it, some are supplying it, and some are doing it. So we have to establish how we do that, how we protect citizens from danger at the end of the day, and how we get that information in the right hands so we can manage the situation better.
One of the things I've noticed you said there was, getting, because I know you're about getting that community engagement and, referring back to the Crime Stoppers sort of scenario. We also used to have a neighborhood watch program, I mean, we used to have safe zones for schools for kids to run to, sort of thing. But, I can't remember what they were called exactly. I just remember there was a little yellow symbol and a little triangle sort of. No, Neighborhood Watch was the white symbol with the green sort of copper sort of looking thing. There was another one, like if you were, during the 80s, if you felt you were, stranger danger sort of thing, and you needed to run to a safe home. But obviously I think that turned out to be a bad thing, because a lot of the people who were pretending to be safety house. Thank you, Mila. Safety houses. They were obviously a breeding zone for dodgy people who wanted to do harm to children. So, but a neighborhood watch program, I don't think there was anything bad about that, for sure.
Well, it's interesting. So when I was in Mackay and I was, I guess, on tour in 2020 as I campaigned, I was very strong on crime and identifying it and doing things. And I went to a group who started a Crime Stoppers, Crime Watch type group in a neighborhood. And it was the one neighborhood that had the least amount of crime.
Oh, wow.
These people would talk weekly, daily, and they'd have their own private page. And they actually had on their letterbox and went out and they mailed and they worked together as a community and said, hey, look, we've got a safe neighborhood. This is what we're going to do. And they had the police officer of that local community come in and visit them every month. And they talk through, how do we manage this? How do we identify this? And it was great because it was working. And if you can establish that amongst your community, you've got to be safe. You are going to be safer because people start to trust and build pride and say, hey, look, you know what? We're starting to get on top of it. You still got to get the federal, local, state government support, but people are working together to identify and protect each other. That's what it comes down to. You've got to protect it. I'm not saying go out there with baseball bats and violence, because that's not the answer.
Yeah, vigilante groups.
No, not at all.
Not the best idea.
No, not at all. But we got to identify the problem.
Definitely.
I don't know
it seems that the proof was in the pudding, that that community group had the lowest crime rate. So it's obvious that is an effective strategy that I look forward to seeing encouraged here in Townsville.
Yeah. And look, I think too, when I looked at that group, and that was back in 2020, and Mackay has crime problems as well. The rest of the
whole of Queensland does.
Yeah, they didn't take it on. And that's, how do you engage and make communities take it on? Well, at the end of the day, if you're proud and you want your community to have less crime, you got to participate. It's not always up to the government. If you don't participate, you're not going to fix the problem.
Most certainly. It's actually reminded me of something I had tucked away for a thing last week, but I didn't get to it. So, but have you got a question there while I quickly look for a video I was going to bring up last week?
You've got hundreds, you told me before.
Yeah, can't wait.
Well, I was just about to ask, has there been anyone or anything really that's inspired you to want to push forward in this mission that you've been on for quite some time? Like any perhaps instances in history, or maybe people that you know already? Is there anything like that has,
Look, there's been several. Probably most recently, over the last 4 years, there's a councillor by the name of Fran O'Callaghan. Fran's a genuine, nice, lovely person, and she just inspires me to want to be mayor. And the reason she does is, I watched over a long period of time before they closed off council, the way she was intimidated and bullied by a party within her own council. She was gagged. She was arbitrated against. And to a lesser extent, the other independent person, Sue Blom, was too. And they came out in the media, Team Jenny Hill, and said, we don't do that. That's not us. But it was really clear that when funding wasn't going a certain way and they weren't getting supported and they were getting cut off in council meetings, they weren't supported. So there was that bullyism. So if I'm inspired by somebody locally, it's Fran O'Callaghan and Sue Blom, because what they had to go through, I don't want to see again in council. So that's one of them. But then I look at people like my mum. She's a pretty old lady, but she's been around for a long time. And what I don't want to see is the elderly, disabled, people who can't defend themselves, whether they're young, old, indifferent, disabled, who can't defend themselves. So we have a responsibility as human beings to look after these people, to look out for these people. And that inspires me to want to help those people, because they're not getting the support currently that they should. So my viewpoint is, I look at members of that's what really inspirational to me is I look at people in the community like my mother, who's a big inspiration to me, and Mark knows her. You know,
Lovely
she's a
lady.
frail old woman who goes to the shops, and she's on a walker and she has walking sticks. And I think to myself, you know, she's a prime target. God help anybody who goes to grab anything, because they'll get the walking stick on the back of the head. But at the same point, she's frail, she's old. You know, I look at disability, because these people aren't, you know, there's no process. They go for the weakest link. They're looking at the weakest link. So we have to protect.
And we're seeing a lot of attacks on elderly lately too. It's to the extent where a bunch of them got together and murdered it. You know, an elderly, I think it was an elderly lady, was it? And you know, I've recently seen a few videos getting around on social media platforms of, you know, elderly being set upon by not just one but several of these, you know, young hooligans. Like, I mean, wow, how tough are you guys? You know, it takes a group of them to attack an old lady or an old man. Like, it's just madness. You know, we've cultivated a society like this.
The other one was, and I think back some years ago, and it's terrible. I can't remember the girl's name right now, but she was bullied at school, and she ended up committing suicide. She was bullied at school, and and this is what's happening in politics and community. People intimidate and bully. That's not acceptable. So we need to take that out. I've always met bullies head on. And people say, "Well, you're the bully," and no, I'm not. I'm trying to stop the bullies.
And isn't it amazing how often these people project what they're doing onto others too? You know, like, absolutely.
So there's a whole collection of people, Oliver, but you know, at the end of the day, we've just got to be mindful that there are people and communities out there that need. Yes, Clinton, you're exactly right. Community spirit is broken right across Queensland. It's a shame. Where's the pride? Where's the pride in who we are as people? Where's the manners? Because manners have gone. There's no more please, thank you. I don't see people standing up for old people or disabled on buses anymore. They sit there and they look away so they don't get eye contact. That's disgraceful. I was brought up in a time where we always looked after those people. It's not there anymore.
I remember when I was a kid, we were at the supermarket, and you know, a lady had dropped, you know, some of the, you know, food in the supermarket, and my mum goes, "Quick, help the lady." I'm like, "But I didn't drop it." Whack! Help the old lady, you know. And she apologized to the old lady for me being an insolent little shit.
You
know, I don't, you know, have any animosity towards the old lady. If anything, it was, I deserve that. That was a horrible thing to say. Well, it's not my problem. I didn't do it.
But somebody's got to start, right? You've got to make a start. Somebody's got to put a foot forward and go, you know what, I'll help. I'm going to do something. So that's why I put myself in this position. I want to make a start. I intend to see it through, but I need the whole community support because I can't do it myself.
Yeah.
Can I say something else, Mark, or are you about to go somewhere with this?
No, there you go. Yeah.
You mentioned something about pride and how that might help instill that sense of responsibility. And perhaps one way that people might find some pride is within identity. And I am kind of connecting my own dots here. You might have a different perspective on this, but what are your thoughts on maybe going that route to maybe help people understand or reinvigorate that sense of identity, that Australian identity that might be a little bit, not as well understood as it was back in the old days, as Mark sometimes likes to say.
Yeah, look, that's the thing. I come from a generation where it was all about pride, and I've got a Uncle Abdul Rahman, Albert Abdul Rahman over in Anoomba, and he's all about the pride of how things looked and how people respect each other, and he projects that on people, and it has such a positive response that people they hang around him and they want to invest in what he is. And what I probably need to see a lot more of in Townsville is people taking pride in what they do, but in other people, and respect and pride, and they're all words and they're all catchphrases that politicians might use. But imagine being somebody who actually does take pride in something and takes the first step and says, hey, look, I'm going to do this. And I am proud of Townsville, but we've got to change what we are at the moment. We've got to change the way we respect people. You know, my son, and it's sad because my son came out to me back in, he's a gay young man, and he's now transitioning to transgender. That's his choice. And I don't understand it because I come from a generation where things have changed. So he explains to me how things work and why he wants to be that way. And it was hard for me because I've come from a family that was military and we're very black and white, and this is the way things were set. So I've had to change the way I think. And I'm always learning. And you asked early on about, you know, a demographic and a group and an age group. I have to change the way I think. And if we don't change that, then we haven't got much hope to bring pride back into society, because we've got to be inclusive of everybody. I'm not dancing around the subject. You learn as you go on how you react to people. And I'd like to think I'm one of those people who's willing to change and willing to bring about pride and demonstrate within myself what I see as pride. But everybody's different level is within themselves. So I have to understand the person and the people and the community to develop that outside of the community. It's hard because I'm from a demographic and I have to change my own self and I have to improve myself to understand what people expect of me. So, but I'm willing to put it out there and say, hey, you know what? I want to learn.
I think there's got to be a line at some point, though. You know, I mean, I'm with you on I don't really understand the whole transgender thing, but it's now getting to a point where they're trying to normalize pedophilia and now bestiality.
Yep.
I don't think I want to try to understand that level.
No, look, neither do I. And, you know, but to understand what people want to do, you have to have a conversation, right? And we need to go. I have a very distinctive level in what I believe and what I don't believe. My son said to me, look, Dad, I'm gay some time ago. And I said, that's great. I don't love you any less. I love you. You're my son. That's where it stopped. You're my son. Now, he didn't come to me, Mark, and say, hey, I'm into bestiality or I'm in, because I'd probably say, oh, hang on a minute. That's something that I'm not comfortable with. And why are you doing that? What's going on? There are things that you need to understand, and there's things that you're willing to accept, and there's things that you aren't. You do have to draw a line in the sand. You absolutely have to. You know, you talk about intimidation and bullying. That's my line in the sand. Don't bully, don't intimidate. We won't have a problem.
Most assuredly.
All right.
Wow. You know, I actually now that Clinton's popped in, I don't know if you popped in a bit earlier when we were talking about Aaron Harper, but you know, I think, you know, if Aaron's going to have a bit of a problem, I think we've got another person here that, you know, might be able to step into that seat of Thurngale quite comfortably, and that's Clinton Hawkes. So I guess, you know, as time moves in and things are going through. Are you likely to support some other candidates over current sitting members if they're going to make your life hard, or are you going to sit back and sort of keep that, well, the council really should be more of a neutral entity sort of a scenario?
Look, council is and look, the current council and government is managed by the state government. Currently, the state government of the day is the Labor Party. Yeah. So Aaron, in effect, is not my boss, but the state government manage local governments, right? So there's got to be respect there. But you also have to question things that aren't working. And what I've found with Jenny Hill and Team Jenny Hill, and regardless of who your leader is when you're all in one party, you probably don't put the pressure on the people you should. And what I will do is I will put pressure on the current government, whether that be Nick DeMetto or Aaron Harper or, you know, whoever it could be, David Christofuli. I have to put pressure on them and say, hey, what are you going to deliver? The same as what I would do to Clinton Hawkes. Now, Clinton has said to me that this is the things that he wants to deliver. This is the crime and he is addressing a crime issue with something that will work. So yes, I will support that. I'm not supporting the Labor government because they've had plenty of time to say this is our viewpoint. But at the same time, they have to now come up and say, we're going to do it and commit to it now. You know what I mean? It's if it, regardless of the hat and the color that you wear, you have to address it. And at the moment, it's not being addressed. So I'm going to put some real pressure in the government of today to deliver outcomes for Townsville, because that is my area, is Townsville. I have to make Townsville better, which means whoever the government of the day and the leader of the day is, we have to call them out and say, hey, look, you're responsible for this. Let's change it.
Most certainly. It's an interesting scenario because I think, generally when I look at the way, politics have been run here in Townsville, it always seems that our local state members are sort of standing behind Jenny Hill while she barks all the orders and tells everybody what's going on, and they just do the noddy head thing in behind the scenes. And, Clinton's made an interesting thing here that local government isn't enshrined in the Constitution as per the 1984 referendum, if memory serves correctly, as its own level of government. Until then, it's managed by the state. I think I might have to look into the Local Government Act a little bit more to sort of, be 100% clear on that. But it just certainly seemed that here in Townsville, the roles seem to be somewhat reversed, and council seem to have a little bit more power than even the state. And our 3 state MPs, what I kind of perceive as somewhat useless at best of times. It seemed that Jenny Hill being on the board of the port and the airport and the Townsville Bulletin and what was it? Townsville Enterprise, and there's probably other things in there that I'm not aware of, that she seemed to be pulling all the power.
Look, Jenny Hill has been in government for 20 years. She has been in this local government for 20 years, and 12 of those as a leader. So she's privy to a lot of information that a lot of us aren't privy to. I guess the position of strength she comes from is having that internal knowledge. And she sits as the chairperson and advisor to the Local Government Association Queensland. That's 77 councils. Now, to me, that's a bit of a conflict of interest, because as your local member, she should look after local matters first and foremost and only. You shouldn't sit on boards. You shouldn't be sitting on boards because there's a conflict of interest regardless. You've got to manage your local government. And, because she's the same party of the state members, there seems to be a little bit of less push against what they represent if she doesn't agree with it. If I don't agree with something, you're going to see me push forward and say, hey, I don't agree with this. We need this for Townsville. When are you going to deliver it? Whether it be Scott Stewart, Aaron Harper, Les Walker, or Clinton Hawkes, or Natalie Marr, or whoever is running, we have to go out there and say, hey, guys, you have to represent us better. If you're doing a good job, I'm not going to be picking on anybody. But we do need to ask the questions, don't we? We have to say on the local government and the state government right now, what are you doing for Townsville? What are you doing for Townsville? Because I'm not seeing delivery.
Couldn't agree more. Agree more. I'm actually astounded that the Labor state government got voted in on the last election, considering, how utterly useless they've been. And, I'll bring it back up again. Look at those crime statistics. This is a massive increase. And I believe it was somewhere in this period, I think that was when the Liberal had state. Was that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So that was the peak of the Liberals' failings in crime, that Aaron Harper was referring to when, he tried to say that they were just as bad. But, within 3 years, they'd conquered it. And in the last, 3 years here, 1, 2, 3, 4, they've had 4 years of just steady, massive increases, And obviously, we're only just into 2024, but it's on a big rise already. But 2023, wow, that compared to, 47,000 versus 33,000. The Labor government have epically failed on crime.
Yeah, and look, it's rife, and we've allowed this to happen. So at some point, if local government doesn't participate, it's not going to get any better. We have to participate.
Most certainly. So it's up to the people really. But obviously
Look,
crime's been quite an issue for quite some time, but it's been a very steady sort of an up and down until Labor, whoop, straight up.
crime,
I'd like
cost
to.
of living, health, all of these
Yeah.
things are now in their realm to fix, and I don't see a lot of fixes. I think where we're putting money is in the wrong areas. We shouldn't be sponsoring and getting memberships and doing things. We should be investing in our local community.
Most certainly. Something they seem to have completely forgotten. So, and when you see stats like that, it's astounding to think that, they seem to be somehow shocked that people aren't reciprocating.
Yeah. And look, people are saying to me, oh, look, are the Labor Party targeting you, or the current state government targeting you to have you disendorsed before you even get to the chair? Well, I'm still a candidate right now. I'm still a candidate fighting for Townsville. The election and the votes have been cast, but I've not been elected. I'm not in government. I have no power.
Yeah. And as we can see from these articles, it's pretty hard not to see that, there seems to be a deliberate, massive attack on you to the point where you've had to say that you're no longer going to talk to the Townsville Bulletin until they start acting in a fair and unbiased manner.
Well, with decency, because would you not, if you've elected somebody to come in or the votes are going a certain way, why would you go backwards to move forwards? Yeah. What you should be doing is saying, hey, you know what, Troy? We need to communicate positively and build Townsville up. We need to build pride. We need to build respect. We need to put things together. But instead, it's an out-and-out attack on me. Why are we attacking? I'm not the person who's responsible for all these things right now. I'm trying to improve them. I want to work with people to make it better.
And it's disturbing to see that, the only newspaper, here in Townsville, and Kiz JD certainly says that the Townsville Bulletin is useless. And having had a conversation with, a few of the reporters over the years, I think my favorite conversation with one of the reporters went something to the effect of, you guys don't do your research, says me, and, for example, have a look at the whole Russia scenario. Oh, that's easy. He's straight up corrupt, that guy. I'm like, did you even look to the history books to see anything about, the Cold War and, how NATO pushed the borders and they've poked the bear? Did you look at that? Oh, nah. I'm like, well, point proven. They don't do, and then rather than, sort of work with it, he's gone, well, we just don't have the time and we don't have the resources. I'm like, okay, so now you're backpedaling and making excuses for not doing your job properly. I'm not a journalist, but I know these things. So what's your excuse?
Yep. Yeah. Well, look, that's their full-time job, right? So
exactly. They should know more than me.
You have to get
I shouldn't be educating him on the side of the street.
But you don't bring up gutter trash against somebody who's standing to improve things in Townsville. Don't hang him on his past. Let's move on the future and give him the opportunity to prove that we can do better. And that's where we've got to be.
Marla. You gotta look at that. Oh.
Yeah, Jenny's page is always on the front page. Photos always on the front page. I don't think mine's ever been on the front page unless they're trying to castrate me.
Yeah, exactly. And they're certainly setting an interesting working relationship before you've even taken seat. It hasn't happened yet, and we don't want to count our chickens before they've hatched. But still fingers are crossed, and I'm hopeful. That you'll take the seat because I'm all for seeing something different. I couldn't imagine sitting down having a conversation like this with Jenny Hill, for instance.
No, well, she won't come to the party. There's a lot of people who say to me she hasn't spoken to me for 4 years. Why is that? Yeah. Because 4 years ago there was an election.
There you go.
I said to Michelle this weekend, had we been elected, it was my intent to go to the Willows Market and or Cotters Market, open a tent and say, hey, come and talk to me. Come and ask me questions. Come and tell me what your problems are because I want to hear it. I want to hear it from you, not from people in the chamber. I don't think Jenny Hill's done that for a long time.
No. And, I'd be more than happy to help you set up a live chat sort of scenario like this where people can ask their questions,
And
You know,
people
they-
should not fear asking questions. And
Mm,
if they're questions somebody doesn't like, well, they're the right questions. Oliver,
mm,
I appreciate your questions because you're always going to get an answer from me. And if I'm uncomfortable, I'll say, hey, mate, look, I don't know. I really don't know. But guess what? I want to learn. I want to find out more. And I think that's what's missing in government. People don't want to answer the hard questions. They divert. They'll go somewhere else. I won't divert. I'll just say, hey, look, I don't know, but I'm willing to learn.
Yeah, definitely. It's it's great. It would be great if more people in those positions of government could have that attitude, I think. And it's the attitude of growth, of how we're going to move forward, I think, as a country. So,
And accessible too. They've got to make themselves accessible to everybody.
Yep.
So have you got any more of those wonderful questions, Oliver?
Well, yeah, one of them was because I'm not sure if we're coming towards the end of our discussion here, but something.
We're at an hour and a half. I try to aim for no more than 2 hours, but if you want to wind it up, you don't have to ask your questions.
Okay, well, one of the bigger questions I was going to ask was it's more of I'm inviting you to imagine here. So imagine you've achieved a lot of the things that you have set out to achieve as the mayor of Townsville. You've really hit the mark on all those things that you're really wanting to change and improve here. What would be something? What would be the next thing that you'd focus on if there were no problems here in Townsville? We're all okay. Everything's sorted. What would be something that is a bit outlandish, perhaps, and something that you think would be?
Is that kind of like a what do we do when we've reached utopia sort of a question?
Well, it's funny you say that. I was about to use the word utopia, but it's hard to imagine, Oliver, because there's so many things that we've got to get right to get to that point. But if we got to that point, then we've got to go back out to people and say, what's next? What do we need to do? How do we go about things? I'm inspired by people. So people bring challenges to me, and I like to be able to create solutions, but those solutions also have to come from the people. All I am is a platform for those people, a servant to those people. So my thought process moving forward is I want it to be a great society. I want to create pride and manners and respect and all those things, but it's got to be continuing. It's got to be ongoing. So when I move on and I go somewhere else, that the person that comes in creates and moves forward in the same direction. At the end of the day, we've got to move forward. We just have to keep moving forward. And you don't move forward if you don't continue to improve and ask questions. So I guess the best thing for me is to have the ability for everybody in community to have the opportunity to put their issues and problems and areas forward, and they're respected enough to get an answer and a solution. So we've got to keep striving for solutions.
Yeah, great.
And I kind of imagine that, that there's always going to be a problem of some sort, you look at human history, you tell me a point where anybody ever had utopia without pulling out the Bible and going, look, before that woman grabbed that apple off the tree, everything was great. Like with the exception of that one story at the beginning of Genesis, I can't really see a point in human history where things haven't needed improvement.
I think what we've done is we've overcomplicated the way things are at the moment. Government is really complicated on multiple levels. So you strip that back, and one of my examples is probably there's a housing crisis at the moment, right? We've got 1% rental issues. We've got a lot of homeless out there. And what I will say is Jenny's solution, while noble, was to build units on a contaminated site. Do you do that? Probably not. My solution was there's a lot of builders in Townsville, and they build high rises, they build duplexes, and they build houses. So why don't we start talking to builders and developers and say, hey, have you got some land for one? What can you build to solve the issue? Because you guys build the homes, you're the solution providers. So if we've got 500 army personnel coming in and we've got 300 homeless people in Townsville, we've got to find 800 homes or units or townhouses or cities. And we need to accelerate that quickly to meet these problems, you know, short term, medium term, and long term. But to me, I went to 10 builders and said, if what we do, if you guys have got 25 blocks of dirt each and you all made 250 homes, say, or units or duplexes, then we've taken away 250 problems by creating and building homes. And here's the interesting thing. Townsville City Council has the ability to participate again in building homes with builders by taking away the red tape and the bureaucracy that exists for them to build homes. So I went to AP Williams Home, which is a very respectable builder of 90 years, and said, how many blocks of dirt have you got? 25, 30, 40? Whatever you've got, we'll take them, because we need to build homes. And guess what? They build homes within from 8 weeks to 6 months. So that's the turnaround. We can build them. We can start doing it now. So why are we doing that? Why are we saying that we're going to build on a block of dirt that's contaminated? We know that's not going to do anything for 12 months. Let's fix it now. Let's start moving forward in building it. And in the short term, we've got a lot of assets in this city that could provide provisions for homeless people. So why aren't we provisioning that now?
Michael, I don't think those are the kind of mushrooms that Oliver's talking about.
I think I need to just clarify something here. The Townsville Mushroom Society is I like to call it a mycelial roots community, where I spread, I do workshops on informing people of how to grow exotic edible mushrooms. So that's all the legal kinds of mushrooms here. So I teach all the ways that we can work with them. There are no illicit illicit mushrooms in my possession, or the ones that I will do at workshops. We don't do that. So I feel like I've got to say that, because when I bring up mushrooms, people get a little bit nervous, especially seeing the long hair and the beard. They're like, oh yeah.
Well,
hippie, he's on the shrooms. They've been judging your character again, mate.
Isn't it interesting? People have already put you in a bucket.
Oh, that's all right.
You know, I'm put in a bucket because I challenged Jenny Hill. Well, he's got to be a crook. He changed his name at one start because he got married to somebody with a different name, and his name's Thompson. So there's lots of Thompsons, but her name was Burnbrow. So he's got to be a criminal, right? Because he wants to change his name. Yet women get married every single day and they change their last name. Imagine that. I was put in a bucket. You're now being put in a bucket because you've mentioned mushrooms and you've got long hair and a beard and you're young.
Yeah. Oh, some people think I've been put in a book, and you know, that's a kind of famous book that people tend to call out when I'm walking along the street. People will call out all sorts of things, Jesus, this, that. So
and isn't it interesting?
Kind of funny sometimes.
We're being judged on how we look and how we go about things, but that's not what it's about. We you know, there's fairness. That's what we've got to do, isn't it? We've got to create openness with everybody and have a discussion, and that's not happening. People are quick to. I look at social media, and isn't there a lot of keyboard warriors out there who want to attack me?
Oh yeah.
Here I am, and I'm saying, look, I've got a stand at a market. Come and talk to me. Oh no, I don't want to do that. Why would I do that?
My question to those people would be, what are you doing to improve things here? If you're not willing to put in any effort, then I don't know that you are qualified to criticize anyone else that is trying to do something.
Yeah,
Michael wants you to know if you've ever had the special mushroom, Oliver.
Not many people believe this, but I have not.
There you go.
There you go.
Right, and I know that for a fact too, because we've had this conversation many a time. So, it's amazing how many people do ask that. But on the topic of questions, Angela had an interesting question. How many vacant homes sitting derelict are under public trust? Is that something you know, or is that something we can look into later and come back on a later date?
Well, look, there's a lot of properties that are owned by local and state government in Townsville. A lot of people don't know that the PCYC at Garbett is owned by the state government, but Townsville City Council maintains and services it, and they do it for nothing. They don't get any remuneration from the state government. That's just one example. So there's lots of properties that exist throughout the whole of Townsville that we could utilize as an asset. I'm not privy to all of those, Angela. Jenny Hill would be, because she's been there for 20 years. I've been campaigning for 9 weeks. And guess what? I've got 49,000 voters who think that I might be all right. I might be somebody that they could put their belief in. Jenny Hill's got 46,000 of them. So I have to convince 46,000 people as well that I want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
So there's lots of people.
The Townsville Bulletin has declared that they're going to make that as hard for you as possible too.
Well,
not very community spirit of them.
That's great, because you know what? I'm always up for a challenge. I'm inspired by people who want to create negativity because I want to move forward.
Definitely. You know, just as I was saying to you earlier, Oliver, as we were dealing with our, Facebook hacking scenario, it's like, well, we can take it as a pat on the back that we're obviously doing something so good that they needed to try and stop us. And, it gives us, it's a bit of fun, look, let's conquer the demon that tried to make our lives hard. We got it all back. And as of now, the North Queensland Freedom Network page is now called the North Queensland Freedom Network page again. They stopped us for a few hours. And I'm patting myself on the back. Challenge accepted. We sorted that out. And now we'll get to all your pages and sort them out next now that I figured out how to do it.
Well, we've got a fan page that's got to be sorted as well. But, it's a fan page at the end of the day, isn't it? Satire or not. People are spreading rumours and they're trying to affect me, but I'm not affected by it. I'm just...
Well, at least they said it was a fan page. I know there's an elbow page as well where they just give him curry every day as well. I get a bit of a laugh out of it, but I think they might be allowed to do a parody page because they've declared that they have. So yeah.
It's very interesting, isn't it? The what comes to. As I said, 9 weeks. I've had 9 weeks to beat somebody who's been in government, successfully won for 20 years. Successfully won. So to even be in the same space as Jenny Hill and compete and be leading, we're doing something right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Michael is still not convinced of your purity, my friend.
Okay, if we're going to do this, I've had one puff of a joint a long time ago when I was maybe 17. And then last year I had half a cigar with a friend. And that's about, apart from sugar that I sometimes have in fruit because it's in everything, that's all the drugs I've taken. And sometimes the antibiotic as I was growing up. And that's, yes.
I actually don't have to say anything, Oliver, because people keep picking me in the paper and finding a new problem that I've created or done or something. So, and I love it because I'm like, well, you guys do you, and I'll keep moving forward. You know what? Yeah. And we've all got to do the same thing. We've got to move forward.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Cool.
Amazing effort, Troy, says Angela.
Thanks, Angela. We're trying. We are absolutely trying to create something positive in Townsville.
And that's why we built the North Queensland Freedom Network, isn't it, Oliver? So we can create our own little realm of positivity here.
Yeah. In order to have a well-functioning democracy, we must have a effective and honest media. That's part of the ethos of at least why I've, been with Mark, and pretty sure that's why Mark's keen on this as well. There's lots of other reasons to have a good media. We have fun. Yeah. You learn interesting things interviewing people, but it's really we want to make sure that people are well informed and can make the proper decisions and make sure people are held to account and we know what's going on.
Yep.
And look, I'd like to just quickly just say to people out there too, now's the time to start punching some questions in. We are coming to that sort of closing sort of point, but sorry to cut you off, Troy. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying we're all different and we all bring different experiences and we've all lived lives. We all make mistakes, but guess what? you make mistakes, you learn from them. You by moving forward, you learn from them. I'm always held to my mistakes. It's amazing how many times the bulletin have said, you've done this, you've done this, you've done this, you've done this. But guess what? I've lived. I'm still here. I'm still moving forward. And I've chosen to represent Townsville.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we're doing the same thing with this network. You're providing positivity, but you're providing a platform for people to discuss and answer questions. And it's really important that people answer questions. And if you don't know it, be honest and say, hey, I don't know it, but I'm willing to learn. I think that's important. But yeah, please bring the questions on. I'm happy to answer anything. And I think everybody in the room is too.
So we do have to account for the fact there is a bit of a time delay here. I think so sometimes, people aren't getting what we're saying for a few minutes before it comes back. So while we're waiting for some more eager people to jump up and, throw some comments in there and ask some questions, what was some of the interesting things you've seen while campaigning in the last couple of weeks, and particularly, those that, leading up to the last few days?
Look, over the last 10 days, the pre-polling surprised me I should say it surprised me, but it didn't surprise me. Double-edged sword. Day one, I turned up to set up a tent. And what I did was, there's a lot of independents, and Team Jenny Hill's a team, and she provided all the things that a team needed. What I identified early was that we go to 3 polling booths in pre-poll, and there was no shade. So I provided 3 tents, 3 tables, and 6 chairs. So people could stand in the shade, and they could put their brochures on my table, and they could promote themselves and have the ability to do that properly. Jenny Hill, when I turned up to a tent, her team had 2 tents and 30 signs and lots of brochures and lots of volunteers. And independents don't have that money, and they didn't have the platform. So just by providing shade and sunscreen and some water and a table to put their brochures on, we created something good. And I think the people in the public agreed with it, because there's a lot of people who have changed seats now. There's people who would never have been in a government position, in a position to be able to push forward if they weren't given the opportunity. So what I was trying to create was shade, protection, and a table that gives them somewhere where they feel safe.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but there were other candidates there that had a problem with you sort of providing a space for other independents. Elaborate on that.
Yeah, there was. Look, there was individuals and the tent that I had was for all independents, whether they represent a certain demographic or they didn't. I even had young Ben Tilley come and stand under the tent because he needed shade. He needed to drink some water. He needed to sit down and have a rest, and he was abused. I had Erica Keem, who came along, put herself out there, very community orientated, and she was attacked. And I didn't tolerate that. I just said, look, that's not right. We don't do that. We're here to work and represent and get the job done and be elected. We shouldn't be fighting amongst ourselves.
So abused and attacked by members of the public or other council?
No, by other councillors and other candidates. Look, I stood in line and I was whacked out of the way by an umbrella. A big, tall, 6-foot woman who had an umbrella and would turn. Every time I went to hand out a brochure, she would turn so I wouldn't be able to hand out that brochure.
And this was intentional?
Well, obviously it was intentional. But you know what? You keep going. You hand out your brochure. You say, look, I want to be the next mayor. Here's my brochure. I want to do this here. And unfortunately, that intimidation even happens at polling booths.
Yeah.
It's sad. But you know what? If you got a desire to compete, you get back out there and you do it again every single day. And we did that for 10 days. But yeah, there was certainly competition, but it was unhealthy competition. You don't need to be spiteful, nasty, and not inclusive. We should all be wanting the same thing, and we should be doing it safely.
Yeah, very unsporting attitude.
Well, yeah, it was. It was very unrespectful.
And it's a shame that kind of thing happens so much, and particularly from people who have been in government for quite some time. That way inclined, it just to me demonstrates a very childish nature, and especially after we discussed the bullying construct as well. You can't help but feel this is like that primary school fucking mentality coming out of these people.
Oh, look, for 2 weeks, it was hard and it was exhausting because I got there every morning at 4:30 in the morning to set up a tent. Just put it up, put the signs up, put the chairs. Then I drove away and had some breakfast and then came back when it was ready to start. And all I did was hand out brochures. And I had volunteers that handed out brochures. And it's sad that it is so competitive that people want to shove their way in and push in front of you and fight. But you've got to have there's got to be some pride and some respect and some manners. And they disappeared when voting started. People were fighting to get in front of you. And I stood there and said, look, would you like to vote for a different mayor? That was all I said. Would you like to vote for a different mayor? And a lot of people clearly said, yes, I'd like to. The sentiment was that what we have now didn't work and isn't working. So they came over and talked to me. And when
did you find a lot of people sort of sought you out?
Yeah, look, they did. And people came over and straight away, others would come over and say, oh, no, you want to vote for me. So hang on. They've come to ask me a question. So let me answer my question.
Wow.
And that's
so
how clearly
it is.
What I have done.
Intimidated by you just being there, and I guess that's more about them than what you were doing more than anything. They were afraid.
Well, look, what I did do with the Electoral Commission of Queensland is said, let's bring some fairness back to voting. Why don't we all just have 2 signs? Why don't we just have a pack of brochures on a table that people? No one wants to walk up and have papers thrown at them. Vote for me, vote for me, vote for me. It's very in your face and people were uncomfortable. They should have the ability to walk up to somebody and say, hey, look, I want to have a chat to you. I want to understand what your pledges are and what your policies are. And it was taken out of people's hands. You didn't have the ability to do that because they were bullying their way over it. And that shouldn't happen. People should feel comfortable to be able to walk up to a polling booth, grab the brochure they want and ask the question they want of a person. So I'm going to make it very clear to the ECQ that things have to change. This is my recommendations and my experiences, and lots of people have had different experiences, but there's certainly bullying, intimidation, and it shouldn't be there. It doesn't belong there.
Most certainly. Well, we've got a couple of questions here. Zach says, can Troy help bring better bands / artists to Townsville? And I'm going to suggest that he is not talking about people like Pink. Pink may be, some people's cup of tea, but I'm pretty confident we're looking for something a little bit heavier from young Zach.
Look, what I will say is that everybody should have the opportunity to play their music and their style in Townsville. It's not closed to Pink, or it's not closed to whoever else, other bands. It should be, everybody should have the opportunity. There used to be Battle of the Bands, right? That's gone away. I don't know where that is. It's not there anymore. It's very sporadic these days. It's not there. So why not be able to open ourselves to all bands and all different musics and all genres and respect that? What's really sad is there's nowhere for people to play.
Yeah. And I having worked in the entertainment industry, I can tell you there's a few businesses around here that could really benefit from it. I was talking to one production, I guess, manager or owner of a business here in Townsville that provides musical equipment for, live events and whatnot. And they were saying there's just no good rock gigs anymore. It's just not happening. When I first got here to Townsville as working in the news, I'm asking the news, why don't you guys actually engage musicians and artists more often? Once in a blue moon, you might go to the art gallery, you know. But as far as art went, unless it was John Farnham or something big lobbing into town, they just didn't care. You know, I mean, I guess the reporters having no idea was probably one thing. We went to one story for the baby animals. And, you know, I'm like, oh, what's the job? Oh, just some band. And I get there, it's the baby animals. I could have murdered her. Like, how do you not know the baby animals? Like, you call yourself a reporter? I mean, not to mention female reporter. This is a female rock star sort of thing here, born and bred in Australia. You don't know who these people are. Like, oh my God, the ignorance of reporters just astounded me. But that aside, like, you know, I went the answer to the question, why don't they do that? Oh, you know, it's just a bit too hard.
Well,
I'm sorry, it's too hard to do your job.
You know, there's a demographic that will go and see baby animals, AC/DC, Metallica, whoever it may be.
And I walk around Townsville, I see a lot of those T-shirts.
Well, there is, and there's a demographic, and there's a group that grew up on that stage and watch that. And people say all the time, "Oh, I don't want to see that anymore." But you know what? People do.
I see a lot of young kids wearing Ramones and Metallica and AC/DC and all sorts of, you know, like in Townsville, I think there's a bigger demographic for country and hard rock than there is the crap that's been coming out.
So the answer to the question is yes, we should be open to all bands coming to visit Townsville, not just the demographic. Because yes, Pink's a big megastar and she's popular and she's going to fill a stadium. It's going to be 2 nights of great stuff, but there's a lot of other talent and artists out there that have the opportunity to be heard, and we're not providing that for them.
Exactly. You know, and I think I've seen on, I think it was Susie's page, there's a big Pink art piece, obviously something to do with the council where they've allowed a big mural for Pink. Don't think she needed the promotion. To me, that's not good community money being spent. Like she sold out 2 shows or close to sold out 2 shows. I don't know that we need a mural for Pink. Perhaps we could have used some sort of a billboard or a notice board for other musicians. Where'd that sound come from? It sounded like somebody just... That's weird. I got some... I don't know if that come through the cast there, but it was interesting. Anyway, yeah, it actually sounded like a voice. But anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, you know, a community notice board sort of where, you know, a place for musos to meet and get, you know, that might even get some of these troubled kids to do something, you know. I think I've seen something around town. Oh, you got to go, mate?
No, I was about to say that there are scenes in Townsville that do try to nurture up-and-coming talent, such as there's the otherwise open mics that I myself have performed at. And that are still
I've been to a couple of open mic nights there. That's a good thing that's going in town at the moment.
There's also I believe King Kong's School of Rock or something, run by Costa. I know him. He's a really cool dude, and he I think he's done lots to help support particularly younger people with their music development, and he's hosted lots of open mics for them. But yeah, of course, there is lots of a lot of you know, we could of course use more help and more minds to kind of brainstorm ideas to help bolster that music scene. But there are people that are doing it, and I think they are looking for other people to help out with that mission that they've got there of getting the arts going in Townsville a bit more. So I just had to add that there are some.
Cool. Well, that's good to know there. I mean, obviously, I was aware of the open mic nights and whatnot, but it'd be good, I think, to see council supporting that, because I don't know if council has supported it in the past, but there's something for you to step up and have a go at. I know music saved me from life of doing dumb shit. Well, actually, I might have facilitated some dumb shit too, but that's another story.
Well, yeah, there's what's on, and I don't know what because Townsville has a directory of what's on, right? And I don't know what they have and haven't supported. I see things all the time, but there's stuff that's been mentioned that isn't on there. Why isn't it on there? Why are we not promoting everything that comes up? I think there's got to be a proper directory that people can say, hey, what's on this weekend? Oh, great, I want to go and see that open mic night. Why do I not know about it?
Yeah, there you go. So I am aware of, I think, the Kong's music school, because, you know, I was looking for music schools, but I wasn't aware of community engagement. so to speak. So we might move on to some other. There's a few comments here I want to get to. So from your recent experience in running for mayor, what insight and advice would you give those who may be considering running for the upcoming state election, or perhaps even, you know, around the country? I don't know if everybody did council elections. I know we did here in Queensland. Excuse me, but obviously other elections we might even open that up to, because you run for both state and council, so we could probably sort of broaden that brush, if you like.
If you've got a passion to get involved and you want to do it, then put your hand up. There's, you know, it's not, there is a cost involved. You've got to be mindful that there's a cost involved. You are going to be up against a big organisation, be it Labor Party, Liberal Party, One Nation, Katter Party, whatever. They all have money, so they've done it before. They've got experience. As an independent going in there, you pay for everything. If you have, you've got to have a strategy behind what you do. But absolutely, I encourage people to put their hand up, because there's nothing like going through an election process and learning what it is. You might not get in it the first time, but you learn how to do it better for the next time. Sometimes, and the timing was right for me this time, you might get on. And I look at Erica, she was in it for 4 weeks, and she's only 300 votes away from Liam Mooney, whose family's been in elections and things like that their whole lives. So, you know, here's somebody who was a community person, and she put her hand up and said, you know what? I think I've got something to give to the community, and the community has heard her. 4 weeks, and she's 300 votes off being elected. You know, that says something for people wanting to put their hand up, but ask the questions. How do I go about it? What do I need to do? There's not that education out there, and I'm hoping that we will educate people as we go through the journey.
And a little bit more on that Erica scenario. Like she, you know, she was, I think Ruben, you know, found her. She's a neighbor of his, and they came around to have a chat to you and me that one particular day. And she was, you know, hesitant. Oh, I don't know if I want to, should I do it? You know, and, you know, you gave her a bit of an encouragement and walked her through how it all worked and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, I come up with my typical woo weird shit and said, well, look, at the end of the day, if you're still not sure, go home, grab a coin and flip it. I'll even give you one. I think I got 20 cents here, you know, go home and flip it. And, you know, a couple of days later, she decided that's it. She's going to go through. She sent the message to Ruben to pass on to me. And Ruben said, yeah, by the way, she went home, flipped the coin 3 times, and it came up saying, yes, do it on all 3 occasions. So,
and look, she had to go and buy some signs. You know, they're not cheap. You spend $1,000 on signs to get your signs and your billboards. So brochures, you know, if you go to, you can shorten it. I end up getting black and white how to vote cards, because our thought process was, instead of printing out lots of things to hand out, we went and got some signs that were my how to vote signs, and we'd hand them out and say, hey guys, this is how I want you to vote. Just look at my sign. That's how you got to vote. People said, oh, but do you have a brochure? And it's like, oh my God, really? So we ended up printing thousands, but we did in black and white, 3 cents a copy. You know, you can do things, but you don't have to spend a fortune to be recognized. It's how you go about it. We ran a very good social media campaign. Luckily, my partner is really good at it and made me look better than probably what I am. But at the same time, I had something to say and something to portray. And I think people understand where I come from. So I encourage people to put their hand up and have a go.
I'm not sure what Cherry's talking about here. I've never taken a HTV. Think they're a waste of money. Oh, there you go. How to vote card. All right, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, look, it's really interesting, because my thought process this time was, instead of core flute signs of my face, we'd actually get the how to vote card and put it on a sign. And we did that, you know, vote 1 Troy Thompson or Jenny Hill or whatever. And we did it as a how to vote card. And people were going, yeah, we don't need a card. But so many people were, oh, no, I need a how to vote card, because I'm not going to remember it when I get in there. Really? My name's Troy Thompson. You just got to put 1 beside my name. So I agree, Cherie. I would have preferred not to give out how to vote cards, but there is an older generation that says, hey, I need that piece of paper. So you've got to accommodate multiple levels. You know, you can stand firm and say, look, I don't have one, and this is my card, and this is the way I want you to vote. But if they don't get a card, sometimes they go, oh, well, he's not very prepared, is he?
Yeah,
So
that's interesting. I mean, I charge through, and if you try and stick one of those things in front of me, I'm likely to bite your head off. I've already made my fucking decision. Get the hell out of my way, you know. But you know, I'm the kind of person who does my research. You know, where interestingly, it's amazing how many people make their mind up right then and there in the line. That mystifies me. But there's not many. There's lots of things that mystify me. So,
well, we had volunteers, and being from a mayoral wasn't just a division. I had to get to 141,000 voters. And so we went, 20, 30, 40,000 how to vote cards were handed out. People were bringing them back. They said, are you allowed to take them back? I know COVID's over, but are you allowed to take them back? Absolutely. It saved me 3 cents.
Nice. There you go. So yeah, help out your local independents and whatnot. Save a few bucks. Don't just throw it in the bin. Bring it back. Recycling. Look, that's about as green as you can get.
Michelle and I printed them off, and we cut them with a paper cutter, 3 per page, and we cut them. We handed them out, and people gave them back, and we kept reusing them.
Beautiful. That's community spirit.
Yeah.
So Marla says, can you put a stop to bullying and intimidation in the council? It is illegal in all other workplaces. Apparently not under Jenny Hill, but
look, and it's funny. There was a recent Townsville Bulletin report that Jenny had put out there and said, oh, we weren't bullying. We all got along. Well, I would ask, we all got along as long as they all did what I asked them to do, I think was the statement.
That typical sort of socialist Labor policy, and those who have watched the show have heard me say many a time my personal experience working with the union Labor style people, and it's pretty much our way or the highway.
Yeah, I don't like bullies, so I push against bullies and say, hey, it's going to stop. So my view is in the chamber there won't be bullies and intimidation, because this person, if I'm elected as mayor, will say, hey, stop. Somebody else wants to speak. It's that simple. Let them speak.
Yeah.
Let them have their say. Because they didn't let that. Fran O'Callaghan was gagged and arbitrated against because she questioned how much something cost. And people weren't prepared to give the answers. So in the chamber, as the chairperson of the chamber, the mayor, I can say, hey, stop. We've got to let somebody else talk. So that's my commitment. There's no more intimidation in the chamber.
I like it. And I like what you said earlier about opening the door a little bit more too. I think that's for people to be able to go in and see. Because again, a little bit of blast from the past. I remember sitting out front of the council office with one reporter one day while he was getting extremely frustrated, thinking that they're doing it on purpose. And I'm pretty confident they were. There was a big story, I can't remember what it was at the time, that he wanted to get a hold of, and he knew that they were pushing it because they know there is a time limit for the news. And I mean, that's something they do to themselves in that sense that, if we do it tomorrow, it's old news, which I think is ridiculous. If I don't hear it, it's new news to me. But that aside, if you're going to open those doors to the general public, I think that's a wonderful idea. Moving on to the next question. Oh, actually, here's a statement. Well, yeah, a suggestion. Zach reckons you should have a Knot Fest. If you're not familiar with what a Knot Fest is, I'll happily point it out. It's pretty much a heavy metal festival.
I'm sort of getting a theme from Zach. So, bands and Knot Fests and, hey, look, I'm happy to listen. I'm not the best dancer, so you won't see me dance, but I certainly love listening to music. And
so it's all about headbanging. Can you just do that? You'll be right.
Yeah, I don't know that I can, mate. If I do that, I might have an epileptic fit. So let's not do that.
We don't want that. We don't want that. Brendan Shields, couldn't agree more. There isn't a venue that could do 1,000 PAX concerts.
What was
and I can tell you, Brendan would know because he's in the music industry here in Townsville too.
What's interesting is what I have learned on the campaign. I actually had a guy from the Civic Theatre, the Arts Society, come to me and say, did you know that the Civic Theatre is only stage 1 of 3 stages. And I said, didn't know. I thought that was it. And he said, no, there's 3 stages that were approved and to be funded to be built. So they've got a sound stage and they can hold concerts. And I went, oh, well, that's interesting. I didn't know about that. So there's actually plans done, finished, consulted, ready to go to build. And we never went that any further. What they did instead.
How long have they been holding those plans for?
Well, for at least 25 years. But NAFA or whatever you want to call NAFA was brought along in different areas when they actually had designed it to be a precinct for the arts and music and everything else. So all of that land was to be developed into stage 2 and 3. So I want to get my hands on that. And there is actually, I think it was called the Townsville Arts Society or Association, but there actually is a website that he pointed me to. And I looked at it and went, wow, why haven't I seen this? So that's the stuff I want to bring back to life and say, hey, look, there are these things.
Especially if people have already done the legwork, all it just needs is, well, let's just get the funding in the right direction and move this stuff forward. Something that's going to generate money for Townsville as well. It just seems madness. But then again, I think about socialism, and socialism was never really a fan of art and creativity. So,
well, he did say to me too that the Civic Theatre is booked out all the time, the whole time. But there was 3 stages to be built. So imagine what it would be.
Susie DiMarcio rocks. I would agree with that. And I've got a photo of me that day that I met her too. It was a good day. You know, the fact that the reporter took a photo of me with Susie sort of made up for their stupidity in some small way. That wouldn't surprise me. That could be from a while ago. All right. I take that back. The Weather Australian News, DiMarcio apparently pushed the jab. Okay. Well, nobody's perfect. Yeah, we've got to accept that there were a lot of people who just believed that the jab was going to be a good thing. Not everybody could see it. Sorry.
Did you see someone just commented Pink was sponsored by Pfizer?
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't
I
know
did.
if that's true or not, but
I'm not sure. I don't know, but wouldn't surprise me. Pfizer throws money at a lot of people. The Western Australian News. Oh, so there was the Western Australian News, not the Weather Australian. There you go.
Well, I wonder about the truth in that, given that Western Australian News is also owned by the same person that owns Townsville Bulletin. So, and we know that's a source of truth. But they do get things right from time to time. So
that's it. I think that's a smart strategy. I'm not sure which strategy we're talking about, but
I think it's the arts.
It's probably the arts. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, based on the time sort of frame there. Will you make the council meetings public again? I think we already said that that's what you were going to do.
Angela, earlier on, I did say that it's important that it's completely transparent. I'm actually looking at, and I don't know how it goes because I don't know all the rules, and I'm sure they will try and stop it. But I'd like to think that I can walk around and say, look, this is a day in the day of a man, and this is what we do, and this is how we operate, so that everybody can see and hold me. Can I
film and edit that?
Yeah, absolutely, and hold me accountable. Because
we could live stream it.
Well, imagine that. Michelle said that to me the other day.
Might be dangerous, but it could be done.
I said, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm willing to give it a go.
We'll try. Yeah. Well, I mean, you managed to get through, 2 hours and 12 minutes without doing anything amazingly stupid. So there we go. Troy, what about microaggression and passive aggression? You are dealing with snowflakes. Wow. I think some people have got to toughen up, myself, but by all means, Troy, the question was for you.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. People ask me about the organisation of the Townsville City Council. So as a mayor, I'm a chairman and I can give direction to the CEO. The CEO runs the operation. What I will say is there's a lot of people within the Townsville City organisation whose feelings get hurt a lot, and there's some whose feelings don't get hurt a lot. So we've got to look at all of that and how we manage that better. But I think, there's a lot of what I will say. There's going to be a lot more boots on ground and a lot less people sitting in chairs. And if that offends people, I'm sorry, but that's what's got to happen to make it a progressive council. We've got to get back to doing work.
This is more on the comical side because Michael's prone to random outbursts of comedic nature here. We're putting kitty litter in the council meetings, although considering they're putting them in some schools, that's another can of worms and goes back to, we'll deal with that a later day, I think. Too many celebrities paid shitloads of money to push the jab. Yeah, we know that. And it's not just celebrities. A lot of people were, but anyway, they get the date right. Not sure. Anyway, so if we've got any serious questions, otherwise, I think we can pretty much call it a night. We've well and truly done the 2-hour sort of timeline that I don't like to cross too often, but I seem to inadvertently do it. Too many good conversations with good people. So is there any final things you'd like to say, Troy, before we part?
Well, I was going to say, Oliver, was there any pressing questions you thought of that maybe you wanted me to answer?
That was my next question.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's all right. Go for it.
Look, it just comes down to I'm someone who perhaps also like yourself who's really interested in making some very big changes in this world. And so there's lots of things that I feel I need to know and things that I'd like to discuss with other people who are also wanting to do those things. But I don't think there's anything I can ask that will that we could talk about in a matter of a few seconds from the time that we have left, because I'm sure you're very exhausted after all the things you've been up to in the last couple of weeks and all that. And I'm a little bit tired here as well. So perhaps another time. But
and again, look, at any time I love people coming to see me and ask questions. So you're always welcome to come over and pop up. Mark knows if I've got a tent somewhere or I'm somewhere, come over and talk to me because I'm always open
that's
to
how we met.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, look forward to it.
Yeah. Day one when I met Troy, you were just there doing your tent, and I wandered up, said, "G'day, do you need a hand?" And here we are now.
And lots of things have happened since, haven't they?
Exactly. Lots of cool things have happened, and hopefully a lot more. And Michael says, no offense meant Oliver. We know you're just having a bit of a laugh there, Michael. It's all good. The comic in our show, What's the best strategy you believe is the solution to bring businesses back to Flinders Street? So many empty shops, etc. Great question.
Yeah, look, and I addressed this a few times on the campaign trail. So many businesses have closed up and moved on and moved to different areas. There's a lot of landlords in those properties there, and I think if you incentivize them to bring them in and incentivize the people who have got it. Now, when I say incentivize, it could be they don't pay the rates. There's one particular person, Gecko Shop, that pays about $9,000 a month. Every 6 months, $9,000 in rates. There's another one that pays $17,000 in rates. To me, why not beautify the shop, make the front good, bring about, orders to get the locals back in there, make parking free. There's lots of things that can be done, but you need to get people in there. Why not negotiate with some of those businesses who are outlying to get them back in there and put some incentives in there to make them want to stay in there? And that could be reduced rent, subsidizing rent to keep them there, but getting it moving. But the big problem is the parking.
Agreed.
Getting activation in there and getting some of the localized, there's lots of different mob and tribes. And I talked about it the other day. People said, we've got these, we feel threatened, we don't want to go in there. And it's not their fault. They've got nowhere to go. So maybe put the shoe on the other foot and say, why don't we create a space that allows mob and tribes to speak and talk and coexist in the space within the city centre as well? Because there's not. You name a spot where they can go to. I'm not talking about Dean Park, and I'm not talking at the Townsville Bulletin Square. I'm talking about a space that they can coexist. and live and yarn and tell their stories, because they too are individuals that are reaching out.
So yeah, to further continue that, will Townsville City Council run parking lot like Toowoomba has in the CBD, which is something I'd be inclined to really want to emphasize on that question. I think it's a great idea, because I've noticed that council in the 6 years that I've been here, this is my 7th year in Townsville, have gone from having free car parks to then selling that land to places who are now charging for it.
Yeah, look, there's a space between the courthouse and council chambers that would be ideal for a multi-story car park. I brought this up the other day, and somebody said to me, "There's enough parking in town already." And I said, "Really? Where?" And he said, "Look, but
they were joking, right?"
No, you know where the coffee shop, and I can't think what it's called. It's terrible, but it's beside the old Sugar Shaker, the hotel. But there used to be a multi-story car park that they've now turned into units. I didn't know that 3 of those floors are empty most days. But then I said,
really?
If I don't know that, then how does everybody else know that there's parking available? So maybe council hasn't done their job and said, "Hey, look, there's parking here."
Well, not when there's money to be made from parking and handing out parking fines.
Yeah, but that needs to be abolished. Let's get rid of paid parking. We don't need to pay for parking. That's not how you make an income out of your people. You need to get people to come into town, not to, pay your bills. If you manage your budget properly, you don't have to pay for parking.
I love it, because as far as I was under the impression, the purpose of council was to provide services required by the general public, not for the council to feed off the general public like some kind of parasite.
And not make long-term investments in things that you're not going to see a return on investment in. Make short-term investments that are profitable. Yeah,
definitely. Make parking free. Well, there you go. Marla was right onto that. I avoid the city because of the parking fees and fines, and I wholeheartedly agree. I'm that way inclined too, especially after having lived in Melbourne. And to me, it seems like a nationwide plan to make parking absolutely horrible, so they can justify charging you for it, because it's a nationwide epidemic.
Yep.
But Angela, when is the party? So obviously we've got to wait till Wednesday before, or at least Wednesday at the latest. Is that correct? Or,
look, what I'm being told
should be done.
What I'm being told is there's 1,300 postal votes, and there's probably 1,000 votes from Harry Patel that's got to be dispersed between Jenny and I. So that's 2,300 votes. I currently lead by 2,800 votes. So I won't call it, and Jenny won't concede it. It's heading in the right direction, but I'm a cautious person. You never count your chickens. I won't do that, but I suspect by Wednesday we'll all know. I suspect it will be a lot sooner, but by Wednesday latest we will all know.
And just because the numbers aligned there in a synchronicity, as I thought this, do you believe that this is being delayed on purpose?
Well, there's a Pink concert on at the moment, isn't there? And there's lots of seats that have been bought. So you've got to enjoy your moment while you've got it.
Oh, I see.
It's the conspiracy theorist coming out in Mark.
I mean, you got to ask the questions. That's the thing. If you don't ask questions, you don't get answers. And the most important thing is you got to ask the right questions to get the right answers.
Yeah.
So, as much as you crunch the numbers in that scenario, and the way you've crunched that sounds like a pretty much Troy's won it. Is there the likelihood that they're delaying this in order to get more mail-in ballots in at the last minute?
No, because the way the postal votes work is you must register your intention to vote postal votes. So that was my concern, Mark, was what stops them sending 3,000 more votes in on Monday? But
we don't want to see another Joe Biden scenario.
No, so you register for postal votes. There's only 1,300 registered postal votes to count. 1,300. I lead by 2,800 in the primary and 3,100 in preferences. So There's only 1,300 postal votes registered. It doesn't mean that 1,300 will arrive by Tuesday at 6 p.m. 600 might only arrive. The most votes that can come in through postal votes now is 1,300 votes, and then the preferences of Harry Patel.
There you go.
So they're already done.
Well, it's sounding more and more like we've got a victory on our hands, but we won't count them chickens just yet because they haven't hatched. But anyway, can I please be reimbursed for cutting the grass on my nature strip? Given that you're living in Melbourne, you might be barking up the wrong tree here, but we'll let you take the stage anyway.
Remember I said earlier on, wouldn't it be great if we had a community engaged incentive program where we as a community worked out a balance of, we clean up property, we make sure it's good, we don't leave caravans out, we don't leave boats out, we don't leave trash on the sidewalk. And if it's a clean environment and we're proud of it, then maybe there's an incentivized by reducing rates passed over to the people who own properties and things like that, because that's how you build a community, is get involvement and engagement. So potentially, indirectly, yes, there might be in Townsville, but it's something that's got to be worked through in council. They have to agree with what I put forward.
Nice. I definitely think it'd be a great idea for, people out there that are struggling to pay their rates too. There certainly seems to be a process in place, from what I'm hearing, that, there's an incentive to pay your rates on time if you have the money. But then it's almost like you're getting a poor tax if you don't have the money and you're unable to pay your rates on time,
Or maybe,
and then you got to go through a huge friggin' process to try and get onto, obviously there needs to be some kind of a process, but a somewhat painful process of getting, approval to slowly pay that off over a period of time.
And maybe there's a discount mark in people paying it weekly, fortnightly, monthly, all of that as well, because if you can do that, then the council's got money in the bank to use. So are
you suggesting, they pay in advance weekly, or
Look, at the moment you can do that, but incentivize people and say, look, if you're paying this and you keep those payments up, then at this point we'll give you a discount. At this point we'll give you a discount. At this point we'll give. So there's many avenues that we can provide locals with a cost of living saving. The problem is you've got renters out there that don't benefit from that because landlords own property.
Yeah.
As well. So you've got to look at how you do that. There's things like, we can also do free dump. Instead of having all the rubbish, you'll see Dave out there, tidy Dave, gets out and shows all the rubbish everywhere. So we provide rubbish vouchers, not rubbish days, because we don't want lines out the tip, but rubbish vouchers that get passed on to renters. That'll stop the dump. So there's lots of things we can do as a council to improve.
Nice. Is it no longer a conspiracy theory when it becomes a conspiracy? Well, I think that kind of answers itself, really. Once it's no longer a theory, it is actually a conspiracy. And, given the fact that there are moments where council is operating behind a closed door, it's a bit of a conspiracy, isn't it?
Well, it shouldn't. You pay the bill.
The council used to mow the lawn on our nature strip. It certainly never happened in my time in Victoria, I can tell you that much.
Yeah, it used to happen all the time in Townsville. It used to happen back in the 80s and 90s, but recently the council cut the maintenance crews down by half. So you won't see that happening anytime soon, but my goal is to put more boots on ground, more maintenance people, including these kids' consequences for crime program. Get them out.
I need the gutter out front of my house needs a clean, and I don't need to tell you, the concrete's fucked, has been for 7 years. But yeah, there's a task for you on day one if you don't mind. It's all about me. Anyway, I'll sweep up afterwards. That'll be my contribution. Did Elbow get pink eye at Pink concert? Get all what the fuck? Did he actually turn up? I don't know. I probably went and seen it somewhere else. Nice joke.
No comment.
Excuse me. I think I was allergic to that joke. All right. council would rather take a big stick to people who are unable to pay. I think to a degree, but like I said, there is a payment plan options available. So they're not complete monsters, but that said, nearly $1,000 rate rise in the 6 years I've been owning a home, not appreciated.
And you're not getting a return on investment.
No, I'm actually feeling like I'm getting less value for money. Rubbish vouchers were better than garbage on the nature strips.
Yep, we all agree with that.
Yep, I'm inclined to agree. It meant to say it is no longer a conspiracy theory when it becomes... so it was a statement. There you go. All right. So I think we definitely better wrap it up there. Oh, yeah. One more just came through. I remember growing up, fruit trees were on nature strips. Never went hungry. There you go. So,
unfortunately,
community gardens. That's something that you do, isn't it, Oliver? You've worked on a community garden. Actually, you want to quickly tell Troy about your community garden, since it's come up.
Sure. So I'm working currently on a plot of land that is owned by a man named Chris, who does swimming lessons at the old Garbett / Castle Hill PCYC.
Chris Hansen, know him very well.
Hansen. Oh, cool. Yeah. So he's allowing me to clean up the garden, and he said he wants it to he wants me to make it look beautiful. So that's kind of what I'm working on at the moment, because I think that's something that will help our community in a very broad way, and bring people together, learn more about our food security and being just generally independent with our living. That's kind of what the ethos of it is, and that's what I'm doing there. So yeah.
In the UK, I lived in Europe for quite some time, and in the UK, I used to go over quite often from Germany, and all of the parks there are maintained and worked on by the community. So that they actually have taken ownership. They're all fenced and they're beautiful gardens, but there's also fruit and veg and all of that. And they actually, the community members get access to it and they're able to do it. So it's a wonderful thing that if you can inspire people to do it, and they actually want to do it because they won't ruin somebody else's plan to do that. Do you know what I mean? It's more acceptable, because it's like when somebody draws art on a wall, they won't graffiti over the art because it's something that's been created. And the same applies for gardens.
Yeah. That's the idea. So I'm going to try that.
Yeah. All right.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap it all up, guys. Thank you all for coming on to the show and hanging out with me. Unfortunately, Christian and Alan weren't able to make it today, but we can catch up with them another day on another show. Thanks, everybody, for watching. It's been absolutely awesome.
Terrific.
Yeah, cheers, Mark. And thanks, Troy, for staying and having some good chats.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime. Thanks again. And mate, I absolutely want to talk to you about these gardens, because I think they're a great concept for Townsville.
Yeah, cool. Awesome.
Thanks, Mark, again, as always.
My pleasure, mate. It's been one hell of a journey these last 4 years of knowing you and all the interesting things we've done so far. And, let's see what we can do in the future, my friend. It's going to be fun.
And if anybody doesn't know anything about me, just ask the bulletin. They know everything. So it's
great. And when you're done reading that, come over to the North Queensland Freedom Network and get the rest of the story, because they can only afford all that many lines.
That's right. All right, guys.
No worries, guys.
Thanks very much.
Live long and prosper.
See you later.
Nanu. May the